In this video series, we are going through all chapters of A Game of Thrones as a fully animated comic book experience. This is our 4th episode, and we highly suggest watching our previous videos first before watching this one so you can catch up on all the previous chapters. We will also be using character icons throughout the video to help emphasize who is talking throughout the chapters. As we continue through these chapters, we will show you what really happened compared to the book, the TV series, and the graphic novel, and include interesting theories and foreshadowing of key events whenever we can. Anyway, let's begin. Bran IV. In the yard, Rickon was running with the wolves. Bran was sitting in his window seat watching. It was a sort of tag they played, with Rickon losing badly against Greywind. Shaggy Dog was following the boy, snapping at his brothers if they got too close. He was now almost black with green eyes. Summer, Bran's own wolf, was there too, silvery with golden eyes. He was smaller than Greywind and less bold. Bran considered him the smartest of them all. The boy listened to Rickon's laughter as they played, his eyes filled with tears. He wished to be down there, running with his brother. Angrily, he wiped his tears. He had his 8th name day already. He was almost grown, and men didn't cry. It was just a lie, he said bitterly, remembering the crow from his dream. I can't fly. I can't even run. Crows are all liars, old Nan agreed, sitting nearby doing needlework. I know a story about a crow. I don't want any more stories, Bran snapped. Before, he had always liked old Nan and her stories. But now, spending all day with the old woman, he resented her. I hate your stupid stories. The old woman smiled at him toothlessly. My stories? No, my little lord, not mine. The stories are before me and after me, before you too. She was an ugly old thing, Bran decided, shrunken with age, almost blind, weak, and with barely any hair left. Nobody was certain how old she was, but Lord Eddard had once told Bran that she was already called Old Nan when he was just a boy. She might have been the oldest person in the 7 Kingdoms. She came to Winterfell as a wet nurse for Brandon Stark, the older brother of Bran's grandfather, or perhaps a brother of his grandfather's father. Old Nan was prone to tell it either way. The little boy died at 3. But old Nan stayed in Winterfell anyway. She had children too, and lost them in King Robert's rebellion. Her grandson died fighting Balon Greyjoy's forces. Her daughters were grown, married, and by now dead. All she had left was Hodor, the simple giant who worked in the stables. But old Nan just lived on. I don't care whose stories they are, Bran told her. I hate them. Bran was fed up with stories and the company of the old nurse. He yearned for his parents and for running with Summer on his side. He even wanted to climb again and feed the crows. He just wanted to be like he was before he fell. I know a story about a boy who hated stories, old Nan said, and Bran was ready to scream. Things will never be the same. Bran knew that. The crow made him fly, but when he woke up, his body was broken. And everyone left, his mother, his father, his sisters, and even Jon. Lord Eddard promised he could ride a real horse and not a pony to King's Landing, then left without him. When Bran woke, Maester Luwin sent ravens to Eddard and Lady Catelyn too, and even to Jon, but none answered. Oft-times the birds are lost, child, the maester had told him. There's many a mile and many a hawk between here and King's Landing. The message may not have reached them. It felt like they all died while he was asleep, or more like as if he had died and everyone had forgotten him. Everyone was gone, even Jory and Sir Roderick, and Vayon Poole, and Hullen, and Harwin, and Fat Tom, and many of the guards. Robb and Rickon remained, true, but Robb was now different. He was now Lord Robb, the head of the house. He tried anyway. He carried a sword now, a real one, and he forgot how to smile. He spent his day practicing with his sword. and his night going over account books with Maester Luwin. Other times he went away for days, visiting nearby holdfasts. When he did that, Rickon would cry and ask if Robb was gone for good like the others. But even when he was home, Robb had more time for Theon Greyjoy than for his brothers. "I could tell you the story about Brandon the Builder," old Ned said. "That was always your favorite." Brandon the Builder was the one who built Winterfell thousands of years ago, and probably the Wall too. This has never been Bran's favorite story. Some other Brandon might have liked it. Old Nan often thought him to be his uncle Brandon, the one who died by the Mad King's hand. His mother once explained to Bran that old Nan had lived so long that every Brandon Stark became the same in her head. "That's not my favorite," he said. "My favorite were the scary ones." There was some commotion outside, and as he looked out, Bran saw Rickon running towards the gatehouse. But his window looked in the wrong direction, so he couldn't see why. In frustration, he hit his thigh with his fist and felt nothing. "Oh, my sweet summer child," old Nan said quietly, "what do you know of fear? Fear is for the winter, my little lord. When the snows fall 100 feet deep and the ice wind comes howling out of the north. Fear is for the long night, when the sun hides its face for years at a time, and little children are born and live and die all in darkness, while the direwolves grow gaunt and hungry, and the White Walkers move through the woods." "You mean the others," Bran said. "The others," old Nan agreed. "Thousands and thousands of years ago, a winter fell that was cold and hard and endless beyond all memory of man. There came a night that lasted a generation, and kings shivered and died in their castles, even as the swineherds in their hovels. Women smothered their children rather than see them starve, and cried and felt their tears freeze on their cheeks." She fell silent, and even her fingers stopped working the needles. "So, child, this is the sort of story you like?" "Well," Bran said reluctantly. "Yes, only..." Old Nan nodded. "In that darkness, the others came for the first time," she said, as her needles went click, click, click again. "They were cold things, dead things that hated iron and fire and the touch of the sun, and every creature with hot blood in its veins. They swept over holdfasts and cities and kingdoms, felled heroes and armies by the score, riding their pale dead horses and leading hosts of the slain. All the swords of men could not stay their advance, and even maidens and suckling babes found no pity in them. They hunted the maids through frozen forests and fed their dead servants on the flesh of human children." Her voice quieted into a whisper, and Bran realized he was leaning forward to hear her better. "Now these were the days before the Andals came, and long before the women fled across the narrow sea from the cities of the Rhoyne, and the 100 kingdoms of those times were the kingdoms of the first men, who had taken these lands from the children of the forest. Yet here and there, in the fastness of the woods, the children still lived in their wooden cities and hollow hills, and the faces in the trees kept watch. So, as cold and death filled the earth, the last hero determined to seek out the children, in the hopes that their ancient magics could win back what the army of men had lost. He set out into the dead lands with a sword, a horse, a dog, and a dozen companions. For years he searched, until he despaired of ever finding the children of the forest in their secret cities. One by one his friends died, and his horse, and finally even his dog, and his sword froze so hard the blade snapped when he tried to use it, and the others smelled the hot blood in him, and came silent on his trail, stalking him with packs of pale white spiders big as hounds. The door burst open, and Bran's heart drummed in his throat with fear. But it was just Maester Luwin and Hodor the stable boy. "Hodor," he announced, as was his custom, smiling hugely. Maester Luwin was serious. "We have visitors," he said, "and your presence is required, Bran." "I'm listening to a story now," Bran complained. "Stories wait, my little lord, and when you come back to them, why, there they are," old Ned said. "Visitors are not so patient, and oft-times they bring stories of their own." "Who is it?" Bran asked Maester Luwin. "Tyrion Lannister and some men of the Night's Watch, with word from your brother, Jon. Robb is meeting with them now. Hodor, will you help Bran down to the hall?" Hodor agreed happily. He ducked under the doorframe. The man was near 7 feet tall. Bran found it hard to believe that he was the tiny old Nan's blood. Hodor wouldn't shrink like that even if he lived to be 1,000. The giant lifted Bran as if the boy had no weight. Hodor smelled of horses, but not in a bad way. He was thick with muscles and his brown hair was matted. "Hodor," he said. Once, Theon said that the man at least knew his own name well, and old Nan laughed, telling them that the giant's real name was Walder. Nobody knew where Hodor had come from, but since this is all he could say, people started to call him that. The men left old Nan alone with his needles and stories. As Hodor carried Bran down the stairs, he was humming tunelessly. Robb was sitting in Lord Eddard's high chair, wearing mail shirt and leathers and the stern expression of the Lord of House Stark. Theon and Hallis Mullen were standing behind him. Guards were posted all around the hall, and in the middle was Tyrion Lannister and his servants, accompanied by 4 brothers in black from the Night's Watch. Bran felt a general air of anger in the room as they entered. "Any man of the Night's Watch is welcome here at Winterfell, for as long as he wished to stay," Robb was saying, using his new voice of Robb the Lord. He had his sword out and laying across his knees. Even Bran knew it wasn't a good sign to greet a guest with a naked blade. "Any man of the Night's Watch," the dwarf repeated, "but not me. Do I take your meaning, boy?" Robb got on his feet, the point of his sword turned towards Tyrion. "I am the lord here while my mother and father are away, Lannister. I am not your boy." "If you are a lord, you might learn a lord's courtesy," the little man replied, ignoring the sword. "Your bastard brother has all your father's graces, it would seem." "Jon," Bran said. Tyrion turned to look at him. "So, it is true. The boy lives. I could scarce believe it. You Starks are hard to kill." "You Lannisters had best remember that," Robb said, lowering his sword. "Hodor, bring my brother here." "Hodor," Hodor said. He strode forward happily and set Bran into the old stone chair of the Starks, the one they never used anymore. It was the chair of those who used to call themselves the King of the North. It was cold and polished by the countless men sitting in it before. Snarling direwolf heads were carved into the armrests. Bran grabbed these as his legs were dangling, useless. Sitting in the large chair made him feel very small. Robb placed his hand on the boy's shoulder. "You said you had business with Bran. Well, here he is, Lannister." It was uncomfortable being studied by Tyrion Lannister's mismatched eyes. One was black and the other green, both on Bran now. "I am told you were quite the climber, Bran," the little man said. "Tell me, how is it you happened to fall that day?" "I never," Bran insisted. "Never, never." "The child does not remember anything of the fall or the climb that came before it," said Maester Luwin. "Curious," said Tyrion Lannister. "My brother is not here to answer questions, Lannister," Robb said, annoyed. "Do your business and be on your way." "I have a gift for you," the dwarf said to Bran. "Do you like to ride, boy?" Maester Luwin stepped forward. "My lord, the child has lost the use of his legs. He cannot sit a horse." "Nonsense," said Lannister. "With the right horse and the right saddle, even a cripple can ride." The word hurt Bran badly, and he felt tears swelling. "I'm not a cripple." "Then I'm not a dwarf," Tyrion said, smirking. "My father will rejoice to hear it." Greyjoy laughed. "What sort of horse and saddle are you suggesting?" Maester Luwin asked. "A smart horse," Lannister replied. The boy cannot use his legs to command the animal, so you must shape the horse to the rider, teach it to respond to the reins, to the voice. I would begin with an unbroken yearling, with no old training to be relearned. He drew a rolled scroll from his belt. Give this to your saddler, he will provide the rest. The maester took the paper, obviously curious. He looked it over carefully. I see. You draw nicely, my lord. Yes, this ought to work. I should have thought of this myself. It came easier to me, maester. It is not terribly unlike my own saddles. Will I truly be able to ride? Bran asked. He was too afraid to hope. Another lie. It must be. Like what the crow said about flying. You will, the dwarf told him, and I swear to you, boy, on horseback you'll be as tall as any of them. Robb was confused. Is this some trap, Lannister? What's Bran to you? Why should you want to help him? Your brother Jon asked it of me, and I have a tender spot in my heart for cripples and bastards and broken things. Tyrion raised his hand to his heart, grinning. The door to the yard burst open. Rickon entered, breathless. Direwolves ran in his wake and thought the boy stopped. The wolves didn't. All were focusing on Tyrion Lannister. Summer growled and Grey Wind joined. They surrounded the dwarf, one on each side. The wolves do not like your smell, Lannister, Theon Greyjoy commented. Perhaps it's time I took my leave, Tyrion said. He stepped back, but behind him was Shaggy Dog, also snarling. Lannister jerked away, and Summer leapt at him. He dodged, but Grey Wind snapped at him, ripping his sleeve. No! Bran shouted, as Lannister's men reached for their steel. Summer, here! Summer, to me! The direwolf looked at Bran and hesitated, but obeyed at last. He walked away from Tyrion, settling next to Bran's chair. Robb called off his wolf, Grey Wind, and the beast moved away silently. Only Shaggy Dog remained hostile. Rickon, call him! Bran shouted to his baby brother. Home, Shaggy Dog! Home now! The little boy yelled. The wolf kept snarling for another long moment before leaving Lannister alone. The dwarf pulled off his scarf and wiped his sweating face with it. Then, flatly, he said, How interesting. Are you well, my lord? Asked one of his men. He was holding his sword, staring at the direwolves nervously. My sleeve is torn and my breeches are unaccountably damp, but nothing was harmed, save my dignity. Even Robb felt bad. The wolves, I don't know why they did that. No doubt they mistook me for dinner. He bowed stiffly to Bran. I thank you for calling them off, young sir. I promise you they would have found me quite indigestible. And now I will be leaving truly. A moment, my lord, Maester Luwin said. The old man stepped up to Robb and was whispering to him. Bran tried to eavesdrop, but couldn't make out the voices. Robb put away his sword. I may have been hasty with you, he said. You've done Bran a kindness, and well, Robb showed effort in saying the next words. The hospitality of Winterfell is yours, if you wish it, Lannister. Spare me your false courtesies, boy. You do not love me, and you do not want me here. I saw an inn outside your walls in the winter town. I'll find a bed there, and both of us will sleep easier. For a few coppers, I may even find a comely wench to warm the sheets for me. He turned to one of the brothers of the Night's Watch. Yoren, we go south at daybreak. You will find me on the road, no doubt. And he turned, limping on his bad legs out of the hole, followed by his men. The four brothers in black remained, and Robb looked at them, a bit anxiously. I have had rooms prepared, and you'll find no lack of hot water to wash off the dust of the road. I hope you will honor us at table tonight. He was so awkward, even Bran noticed it. A speech he learnt, not one spoken from his heart. The Black brothers thanked him anyway. Hodor carried Bran back to his bed, followed by Summer. Old Nan was asleep when they entered the room. Hodor greeted her with a Hodor and picked her up to carry her to her own bed. Bran was deep in thought. Robb told him that he can be present on the feast he was to offer to the members of the Night's Watch. He now called Summer gently, and the wolf came jumping on the bed. The boy hugged him tightly. I can ride now, he whispered. We can go hunting in the woods soon. Wait and see. Soon he fell asleep. In his dream, he was climbing the old tower again. his fingers in cracks, feet pushing him upwards. The ground was far away and he couldn't fly. The boy was crying now, clinging on. The crow lied. He couldn't fly. But he climbed so high up he was now standing in clouds. There was no other way but to climb higher, so he did. Far up he saw silhouettes, the gargoyles of the tower. His arms were aching now and the gargoyles watched. Maybe, Bran thought, they had been lions once, and got twisted into the grotesque form later. They whispered in soft voices, but the boy didn't want to know what they were saying, and tried not to listen. Maybe if he didn't hear them, he will be safe. But no, now the gargoyles left the ramparts and fell towards him, and he knew he will never be safe. "I didn't hear," he wept as they came closer and closer. I didn't! He woke up, gasping for air, and there was a large shadow over him in the dark. "I didn't hear," he whispered, trembling, terrified. "Hodor?" the shadow said, lighting a candle. Bran let out a loud sigh of relief. The large stable boy washed and dressed him with gentle hands. When the time came, he carried Bran down to the great hall. A long table was set near the fire with the Lord's seat empty. Robb seated himself on its right, and Bran was put across his brother. They ate pig and pigeon, and the dessert was honeycombs. Summer ate the scraps Bran gave him, while the other two wolves were fighting for a bone. The dogs of Winterfell long stopped coming in, which was odd at first, but Bran was used to it by now. Yoren was the leader of the 4 men in black, and he got the seat between Robb and Maester Luwin. He was old and smelled sour, as if he hadn't washed for a long time. He ate ravenously and shrugged upon hearing Jon Snow's name. "Sir Alys's bane," he grunted. 2 of the brothers laughed. Robb then asked about their uncle, Benjen, and the brothers fell silent. Too silent. "What is it?" Bran asked. Yoren wiped his greasy fingers on his vest. "There's hard news, my lords, and a cruel way to pay you for your meat and mead. But the man as asked the question must bear the answer. Stark's gone." Another brother added, "The old bear sent him out to look for Waymar Royce, and he's late returning, my lord." "Too long," Yoren said. "Most like he's dead." "My uncle is not dead," Robb Stark said angrily. He rose, his hand on the hilt of his sword. "Do you hear me? My uncle is not dead." His voice was echoing in the hall, making Bran afraid. Yoren looked up at Robb, unimpressed. "Whatever you say, my lord," he said. The youngest of the 4 brothers shifted on the bench. "There's not a man on the wall knows the haunted forest better than Benjen Stark. He'll find his way back." "Well," said Yoren, "maybe he will, and maybe he won't. Good men have gone into those woods before and never come out." Bran was thinking about a story old Nan had told him about a hero chased through the white woods by the others and giant spiders. He felt scared again, but then he remembered how the story ended. "The children will help him," he blurted. "The children of the forest." Theon Greyjoy sniggered, and Maester Luwin said gently, "Bran, the children of the forest have been dead and gone for thousands of years. All that is left of them are the faces in the trees." "Down here might be that's true, Maester," Yoren said, "but up past the wall, who's to say? Up there, a man can't always tell what's alive and what's dead." After the feast, Robb carried Bran back to his room. Greywind was walking in front of them, and Summer came behind. Though Robb was strong and Bran skinny, he was still panting by the time they reached the top of the stairs. He tucked Bran in and sat on his bedside for a while. Bran felt like talking, but didn't know what to say. "We'll find a horse for you, I promise," Robb whispered at last. "Are they ever coming back?" Bran asked him. "Yes," Robb said, and suddenly he sounded like Lord Robb for a moment. "Mother will be home soon. Maybe we can ride out to meet her when she comes. Wouldn't that surprise her, to see you a horse?" Though it was dark, Bran knew that Robb was smiling. "And afterward, we'll ride north to see the wall. We won't even tell Jon we're coming. We'll just be there one day, you and me. It will be an adventure." "An adventure?" Bran repeated wistfully. He heard Robb sobbing. In the dark, he reached out and took his brother's hand. And this is where Bran IV ends. So, it seems as though every culture in A Song of Ice and Fire has a prophesied savior. For the First Men, Starks, and the North, the prophesied savior is the last hero. For the Valyrians or Targaryens, it is the prince that was promised. For the Dothraki, it is the stallion who mounts the world. And for the worshippers of R'hllor and people of Essos, it is Azor Ahai. So it seems as though every culture worships the coming of a divine savior who will save the world. But where exactly these prophecies come from is the real mystery, and if Old Nan is suspicious of crows and calls them liars, then I think we, as the readers, should be suspicious too. Here are the differences between the HBO TV show and book. Bran is more pessimistic in the series. He repeats the sentence, "I'd rather be dead." The scene of the wolves attacking Tyrion and the feast with the men of the Night's Watch is also cut from the show. Eddard V. Lord Arryn's death was a great sadness for all of us, my lord, Grand Maester Pycelle said. I would be more than happy to tell you what I can of the manner of his passing. Do be seated. Would you care for refreshments? Some dates, perhaps? I have some very fine persimmons as well. Wine no longer agrees with my digestion, I fear, but I can offer you a cup of iced milk, sweetened with honey. I find it most refreshing in this heat. The heat was real, and Ned's silk tunic was stuck to his body by sweat. Moist air blanketed the whole city, and there was trouble on the riverside as the poor fled their hot hovels and fought for spots to sleep near water, the only place with at least some breeze. That would be most kind, Ned said, sitting down. Pycelle rang a bell and a small serving girl entered the solar. Iced milk for the king's hand and myself, if you would be so kind, child. Well sweetened. The girl went to get it, and the Grand Maester laced his fingers together on his stomach. The small folks say that the last year of summer is always the hottest. It is not so, yet oft times it feels that way, does it not? On days like this, I envy you northerners, your summer snows. The chain with many jewels clinked softly as the old man shifted on his chair. To be sure, King Maker's summer was hotter than this one, and near as long. There were fools, even in the Citadel, who took that to mean that the great summer had come at last, the summer that never ends. But in the 7th year, it broke suddenly, and we had a short autumn and a terrible long winter. Still, the heat was fierce while it lasted. Old Town steamed and sweltered by day and came alive only by night. We would walk in the gardens by the river and argue about the gods. I remember the smells of those nights, my lord. Perfume and sweat, melons ripe to bursting, peaches and pomegranates, nightshade and moonbloom. I was a young man then, still forging my chain. The heat did not exhaust me as it does now. Pycelle's eyes were half closed. My pardons, Lord Eddard. You did not come to hear foolish meanderings of a summer forgotten before your father was born. Forgive an old man his wanderings if you would. Mines are like swords, I do fear. The old ones go to rust. Ah, here is our milk. The girl returned and placed a tray between them. The maester smiled at her. Sweet child. He lifted a cup, sipped and nodded. Thank you, you may go. She did, and Pycelle looked at Ned again. Now, where were we? Oh yes, you asked about Lord Arryn. I did. Ned sipped his own milk. It was cold, which he liked, but too sweet. If truth be told, the Hand had not seemed quite himself for some time, Pycelle said. We had sat together on council many a year, he and I, and the signs were there to read, but I put them down to the great burdens he had borne so faithfully for so long. Those broad shoulders were weighed down by all the cares of the realm, and more besides. His son was ever sickly, and his lady wife so anxious that she would scarcely let the boy out of her sight. It was enough to weary even a strong man, and the Lord Jon was not young. Small wonder if he seemed melancholy and tired, or so I thought at the time. Yet now I am less certain. He shook his head. What can you tell me of his final illness? The Grand Maester opened his arms helplessly. He came to me one day asking after a certain book, as hale and healthy as ever, though it did seem to me that something was troubling him deeply. The next morning he was twisted over in pain, too sick to rise from bed. Maester Coleman thought it was a chill on the stomach. The weather had been hot, and the hand often iced his wine, which can upset the digestion. When Lord Jon continued to weaken, I went to him myself, but the gods did not grant me the power to save him. I have heard that you sent Maester Coleman away. Pycelle nodded, very slowly. I did, and I fear that Lady Lysa will never forgive me that. Maybe I was wrong, but at the time I thought it best. Maester Coleman is like a son to me, and I yield to none in my esteem for his abilities. But he is young, and the young ofttimes do not comprehend the fertility of an older body. He was purging Lord Arryn with wasting potions and pepper juice, and I feared he might kill him. Did Lord Arryn say anything to you during his final hours? The Maester frowned. In the last stage of his fever, the hand called out the name Robert several times, but whether he was asking for his son or for the king I could not say. Lady Lysa would not permit the boy to enter the sick room for fear that he too might be taken ill. The king did come, and he sat beside the bed for hours, talking and joking of times long past, in hopes of raising Lord Jon's spirits. His love was fierce to see. Was there nothing else? No final words? When I saw that all hope had fled, I gave the hand the milk of the poppy, so he should not suffer. Just before he closed his eyes for the last time, he whispered something to the king and his lady wife, a blessing for his son. The seed is strong, he said. At the end, his speech was too slurred to comprehend. Death did not come until the next morning, but Lord Jon was at peace after that. He never spoke again. Ned took another sip, his stomach turning from the sweetness. Did it seem to you that there was anything unnatural about Lord Arryn's death? Unnatural? The old man's voice was thin. No, I could not say so. Sad for a certainty, yet in its own way, death is the most natural thing of all, Lord Eddard. Jon Arryn rests easy now, his burdens lifted at last. This illness that took him, said Ned. Had you ever seen its like before, in other men? Near 40 years I have been Grand Maester of the Seven Kingdoms, Pycelle replied. Under our good King Robert and Aerys Targaryen before him, and his father Jaehaerys II before him, and even for a few short months under Jaehaerys' father, Aegon the Fortunate, the fifth of his name. I have seen more of illness than I care to remember, my lord. I will tell you this. Every case is different, and every case is alike. Lord Jon's death was no stranger than any other. His wife thought otherwise. The Grand Maester nodded. I recall now, the widow is sister to your own noble wife. If an old man may be forgiven his blunt speech, let me say that grief can derange even the strongest and most disciplined of minds, and the Lady Lysa was never that. Since her last stillbirth, she has seen enemies in every shadow, and the death of her lord husband left her shattered and lost. So you are quite certain that Jon Arryn died of a sudden illness? I am, Pycelle replied. If not illness, my good lord, what else could it be? Poison, Ned suggested quietly. The half-closed eyes snapped open. The old man shifted in his seat again. A disturbing thought. We are not the free cities where such things are common. Grand Maester Althamur wrote that all men carry murder in their hearts, yet even so, the poisoner is beneath contempt. He quieted for a moment, deep in thought. What you suggest is possible, my lord, Yet I do not think it likely. Every hedge maester knows the common poisons, and Lord Arryn displayed none of the signs. And the hand was loved by all. What sort of monster in man's flesh would dare to murder such a noble lord? I have heard it said that poison is a woman's weapon. Pycelle stroked his beard, thinking, "It is said women, cravens, and eunuchs." He hawked and spat, and the ravens above them cawked loudly. "The Lord Varys was born a slave in Lys, did you know? Put not your trust in spiders, my lord." This was nothing Ned needed to hear. Varys made him uncomfortable every time they met by just being there. "I will remember that, Maester, and I thank you for your help. I have taken enough of your time." He stood. The Grand Maester got on his feet slowly and accompanied Ned to the door. "I hope I have helped in some small way to put your mind at ease. If there is any other service I might perform, you need only ask." "One thing," Ned said. "I should be curious to examine the book that you lent Jon, the day before he fell ill." "I fear you would find it of little interest," Pycelle said. "It was a ponderous tome by Grand Maester Mollin on the lineages of the great houses. Still, I should like to see it." Pycelle opened the door. "As you wish. I have it here somewhere. When I find it, I shall have it sent to your chambers straight away." "You have been most courteous," Ned told him. Then casually he said, "One last question, if you would be so kind. You mentioned that the king was at Lord Arryn's bedside when he died. I wonder, was the queen with him?" "Why, no," Pycelle said. "She and the children were making the journey to Castle Rock, in company with her father. Lord Tywin had brought a retinue to the city for the tourney on Prince Joffrey's name day, no doubt hoping to see his son Jaime win the champion's crown. In that he was sadly disappointed. It fell to me to send the Queen word of Lord Arryn's sudden death. Never have I sent off a bird with a heavier heart." "Dark wings, dark words," Ned murmured. Old Nan used to say that when Ned was just a boy. "So the fishwives say," Grand Maester Pycelle agreed. "But we know it is not always so. When Maester Luwin's bird brought the word about your Bran, the message lifted every true heart in the castle, did it not?" "As you say, Maester." "The gods are merciful." Pycelle bowed. "Come to me as often as you like, Lord Eddard. I am here to serve." Yes, Ned thought, as the door swung shut. But whom? Ned headed back to his chambers. On his way, he ran into Arya, who was trying to balance on one leg. Her bare feet were scuffed. "Arya, what are you doing?" "Syrio says a water dancer can stand on one toe for hours." She windmilled her arms, trying to steady herself. Ned smiled. "Which toe?" he teased. "Any toe," Arya said, exasperated. She switched legs with a hop, swaying but keeping her balance. "Must you do your standing here?" he asked. "It's a long, hard fall down these steps." "Syrio says a water dancer never falls." She put her other foot down. "Father, will Bran come and live with us now?" "Not for a long time, sweet one," he told her. "He needs to win his strength back." Arya bit her lip. "What will Bran do when he's of age?" Ned lowered himself on one knee beside her. "He has years to find that answer, Arya. For now, it is enough to know that he will live." On the night the message from Winterfell arrived, Lord Eddard had taken his daughters to the godswood of the castle, overlooking the river. Surrounded by black cottonwood and elms stood the heartwood, an old oak. They had knelt before it and thanked the gods for Bran. They stayed for a long time, and first Sansa had fallen asleep, then Arya. Ned stayed up until dawn. "I dreamt of Bran," Sansa had whispered to him. "I saw him smiling." "He was going to be a knight," Arya was saying now. "A knight of the Kingsguard. Can he still be a knight?" "No," Ned said. He didn't want to lie. "Yet someday he may be the lord of a great holdfast and sit on the king's council. He might raise castles like Brandon the Builder, or sail a ship across the Sunset Sea, or enter your mother's faith and become the High Septon. He could do all that. But he will never be running with his wolf," Ned thought sadly. nor will he know the touch of a woman or sire a son. Arya looked at him curiously. Can I be a king's counselor and build castles and become the High Septon? You, Ned said, kissing her forehead, will marry a king and rule his castle, and your sons will be knights and princes and lords, and yes, perhaps even a High Septon. Arya grimaced. No, she said, that's Sansa. She pulled one of her long legs up, continuing her practice. Ned left her with a sigh. Back in the rooms, Lord Eddard took his sweet-stained tunic off and poured some cold water on his head. Alan came when he was wiping his face. My lord, he said, Lord Baelish is without and begs audience. Escort him to my solar, Ned said, reaching for the lightest tunic he could find. I'll see him at once. Littlefinger was sitting on the windowsill looking at the knights training below. If only Selmy's mind were as nimble as his blade, he said wistfully, our council meetings would be a good deal livelier. Sir Barristan is as valiant and honourable as any man in King's Landing. Ned had nothing but respect for the old knight. And as tiresome, Littlefinger added, though I dare say he should do well in the tourney. Last year he unhorsed the Hound, and it was only 4 years ago that he was champion. Very few things interested Ned less than who might win the upcoming tourney. Is there a reason for this visit, Lord Peter, or are you here simply to enjoy the view from my window? Littlefinger smiled. I promised Cat I would help you in your inquiries, and so I have. This was a surprise. Promise or not, he did not trust Baelish at all. You have something for me. Someone, Littlefinger corrected. 4 someones, if truth be told. Had you thought to question the hand servants? Ned frowned. Would that I could. Lady Arryn took her household back to the Eyrie. His squire? That was a nice surprise. A man's squire was as good of a source for information as he could hope for. Sir Hugh of the Vale, Littlefinger said. The king knighted the boy after Lord Arryn's death. I shall send for him, Ned said, and the others. Littlefinger winced. My lord, step over here to the window if you would be so kind. Why? Come and I'll show you, my lord. Ned did as he was told with a frown on his face. Baelish made a gesture. There, across the yard, at the door of the armory. Do you see the boy squatting by the steps honing a sword with an oil stone? What of him? He reports to Varys. The spider has taken a great interest in you and all your doings. He turned, indicated to another man. Now glance at the wall, farther west, above the stables. The guardsmen leaning to the ramparts? Ned nodded. Another of the eunuch's whisperers? No, this one belongs to the queen. Notice that he enjoys a fine view of the door to this tower, the better to note who calls on you. There are others, many unknown even to me. The Red Keep is full of eyes. Why do you think I hid Cat in a brothel? Eddard Stark hated such intricacies. 7 hells, he swore. It looked to him that the man on the wall was watching him directly. Feeling uneasy, Ned stepped away from the window. Is everyone someone's informer in this cursed city? Scarcely, said Littlefinger. He mocked, counting on his fingers. Why, there's me? You? The king? Although, come to think of it, the king tells the queen much too much, and I'm less than certain about you. He stood up. Is there a man in your service that you trust utterly and completely? Yes, said Ned. In that case, I have a delightful palace in Valyria that I would dearly love to sell to you. Littlefinger said with a mocking smile. The wiser answer was no, my lord. But be that as it may, send this paragon of yours to Sir Hugh and the others. Your own comings and goings will be noted. But even Varys the Spider cannot watch every man in your service every hour of the day. He walked to the door. Lord Peter, Ned called after him. I am grateful for your help. Perhaps I was wrong to distrust you. Littlefinger touched his pointy little beard. You are slow to learn, Lord Eddard. Distrusting me was the wisest thing you've done since you've climbed down off your horse. And this is where Eddard V ends. Ironically, the potboy gives Eddard all the clues he needs to solve who killed Jon Arryn. After reading the book provided by Grand Maester Pycelle, Ned could deduce that Jon was worried for his son and arguing with his wife Lysa about fostering him with Stannis, whom he was visiting armorers with despite the two never previously being close. We also see the first hints in this chapter that Pycelle is a Lannister crony and directly had a hand in killing Jon Arryn. Pycelle is super loyal to House Lannister. He convinces Aerys to open the gates to Tywin's army during Robert's rebellion, never betrayed any Lannister secrets, and even went to great lengths to cover them up. He testified against Marjorie, immediately sent for Kevan when Cersei was arrested by the Faith, and essentially did everything he could to further Lannister interest despite Cersei, Jaime, and Tyrion all mistreating him. However, the reason why seems to be revealed in Jaime 1, A Feast for Crows at Lord Tywin's funeral. Of all the mourners, Grand Maester Pycelle had seemed the most distraught. "I have served 6 kings," he told Jaime after the second service, while sniffing doubtfully about the corpse. "But before here lies the greatest man I ever knew. Lord Tywin wore no crown, yet he was all a king should be." Now, here are the differences between the HBO TV show and book. When Ned talks with Maester Pycelle, it starts in the small council chamber after a meeting of the small council. In the book, Littlefinger tells Ned not only about Hugh, but about 3 other people who belong to Jon Arryn's household: a kitchen girl, a stable hand who joined the city watch, and a potboy. Jory speaks with all of them, but only the potboy provides useful information. Meanwhile, in the show, there is only mention made of Sir Hugh of the Vale. Jon IV. Jon was practicing with Daeron when the new recruit arrived. "Your feet should be further apart," he urged. "You don't want to lose your balance. That's good. Now pivot as you deliver the stroke. Get all your weight behind the blade." But Daeron stopped instead, lifting his visor. "7 gods," he murmured. "Would you look at this, Jon?" Jon turned around. Through his visor, he spotted the fattest boy he has ever seen, standing in the yard. Jon thought the boy could have easily weighed 20 stones. His many chins covered most of the collar of his richly embroidered fur coat. The fat boy looked around nervously, wiping his sweaty hands on his doublet. They told me to come here for training," he said awkwardly. "A lordling," Pip observed. "Southern, most like near Highgarden." Pip had been around the 7 kingdoms with a troop and was proud of his ability to tell where people were just by the way they talked. A scarlet huntsman was embroidered on the fat boy's surcoat, but Jon couldn't place the sigil. So Alliser seized the boy up. "It would seem they have run short of poachers and thieves down south. Now they send us pigs to man the wall. Is fur and velvet your notion of armor, my lord of Ham?" But the new boy had real armor. A padded doublet with leathers and mail, a helm, and even a wooden shield, sporting the same striding huntsman. None was black though, so Sir Alliser ordered the boy to get appropriate ones from the armory. This took a while. The boy's size forced Donal Noy to take a hauberk apart and enlarge it with leather panels. No helm was big enough for the boy until Noy took the visor off. The rest was still too tight, so the newcomer could barely move. Once ready, he looked like a sausage about to burst. "Let us hope you are not as inept as you look," Sir Alliser said. "Holder, see what Sir Piggy can do." Jon shuddered. Holder grew up in a quarry and was the apprentice of a stonemason. At 16, his strikes were harder than anyone Jon had faced. "This will be uglier than a oar's arse," Pip muttered, and it was. It was a short fight. In less than a minute, the fat boy was on the ground, his helmet broken and his head bleeding. "I yield," he shrilled. "No more, I yield, don't hit me." Some of the boys laughed, but Sir Alliser didn't think the boy had enough. "On your feet, Sir Piggy," he called. "Pick up your sword." But he stayed down, and the knight turned to Howder. "Hit him with the flat of your blade until he finds his feet." Howder smacked the boy's face gently. "You can hit harder than that," Alliser Thorne taunted. Haldir hefted his sword and delivered a blow so hard that the flat of the blade tore up the leather. The new recruit screeched. Jon stepped forward, but Pip grabbed his arm. "Jon, no," the small boy whispered, glancing at Sir Alliser nervously. "On your feet," Thorne repeated. The fat boy tried to rise, but slipped and fell back down. "Sir Piggy is starting to grasp the notion," Sir Alliser observed. "Again." Haldir lifted his sword. "Cut us off our ham," Ras laughed. Jon shook off Pip's hand. "Haldir, enough." Haldir looked at Thorne. "The bastard speaks, and the peasants tremble," the man said coldly. "I remind you that I am master at arms here, Lord Snow." "Look at him, Haldir," Jon urged, ignoring Thorne. "There's no honor in beating a fallen foe." He yielded. He knelt beside the fat boy. Haldir let his sword down. "He yielded," he echoed. Sir Alliser stared at Jon. "It would seem our bastard is in love," he said, as Jon helped the fat boy up. "Show me your steel, Lord Snow." Jon drew his blade. He felt like he's crossing a line, but it was too late to turn back. Sir Alliser smiled. "The bastard wishes to defend his lady love, so we shall make an exercise of it. Rast, Pimple, help us Stonehead here." Rast and Albert moved to join Haldir. "3 of you ought to be sufficient to make Lady Piggy squeal. All you need to do is get past the bastard." "Stay behind me," Jon said. Fighting 2 was nothing new for Jon, but Sir Alliser never sent 3 at him. He would go to bed bloody and bruised, he already knew, as he got ready for the attack. Pip showed up on his side. 3 to 2 will make for better sport," the small boy said cheerfully. He dropped his visor and drew his sword. Before Jon could say something, Gren was there too, to be their third. The yard was now quiet, and Jon felt Sir Alliser's eyes on himself. "Why are you waiting?" he asked Rast and the others in a false, soft voice. Yet Jon moved first. Haldir could barely parry, and he had to move back as Jon kept on attacking. "Know your foe," Sir Roderick always said. Jon knew Haldir. Mighty but impatient, and weak on defense. If he annoyed him enough, the large boy will make a mistake. Steel sang as the others joined the fight. Jon blocked a cut aimed at his head, the impact running down at his arms. He countered with a side strike that hit true, and Haldir grunted. The next strike got Jon on his shoulder. Though his chainmail crunched and pain stabbed his neck, Jon saw the opening Haldir left him. The young man paid for a momentary loss of balance as Jon cut at his legs, downing him. Next to them, Gren was holding his ground, but Pip was in trouble. Rast was older and bigger than him and pressed him hard. Jon stepped towards them and hit the Raper's helmet hard. As Rast was trying to find his footing, Pip used his chance to knock the bigger boy down, and he leveled his sword at Rast's throat. Jon was already on Gren's side, and Albert backed away from them. "I yield," he shouted. Sir Alliser Thorne looked at them with disgust. "The Murmur's farce has gone on long enough for today." He walked away. The session was at an end. Daeron helped Haldir up. The large boy pulled off his helm and threw it away frustrated. "For an instant, I thought I finally had you, Snow." "For an instant you did," Jon replied. Under his mail and leather, his shoulder was aching. He put his sword away and tried to take his helmet off, but raising his arm hurt too much. "Let me," a voice said. Thick fingers helped his helmet off gently. "Did he hurt you?" "I've been bruised before." He touched his shoulder and winced. The others were walking away. Blood matted the fat boy's hair where Haldir hit him. "My name is Samwell Tarly of Horn..." He stopped. I was of Hornhill until I left. I've come to take the Black. My father is Lord Randall, a bannerman to the Tyrells of Highgarden. I used to be his heir, only..." His voice trailed off. "I'm Jon Snow, Ned Stark's bastard of Winterfell." Samwell Tarly nodded. If you want, you can call me Sam. My mother calls me Sam." "You can call him Lord Snow," Pip said. "You don't want to know what his mother calls him." "These two are Gren and Piper," Jon said. "Gren's the ugly one," Pip said. Gren scolded him. You're uglier than me. At least I don't have ears like a bat. My thanks to all of you, the fat boy said gravely. Why didn't you get up and fight? Gren asked. I wanted to, truly, I couldn't. I didn't want him to hit me anymore. He looked at the ground. I fear I'm a coward. My Lord Father always said so. Gren looked shocked. Not even Pip knew what to say, and he always did. What kind of a man admits to being a coward? Samwell must have known what they were thinking. He looked at Jon. I'm sorry, he said. I didn't mean to be like I am. He walked away heavily. Jon called after him. You were hurt, he said. Tomorrow you'll do better. Sam looked back with a mournful face. No, I won't, he said, blinking back tears. I never do better. Gren frowned at him. Nobody likes cravens, he said uncomfortably. I wish we hadn't helped him. What if they think we're craven too? You're too stupid to be craven, Pip told him. I am not, Gren said. Yes, you are. If a bear attacked you in the woods, you'd be too stupid to run away. I would not, Gren insisted. I'd run away faster than you. Then he stopped, scowling at Pip, who was grinning. His neck flushed red. Jon left them to their argument and went back to the armory. Here, he hung up his sword and stripped off his armor. Life at Castle Black had its patterns. Sword practice every morning, work every afternoon. New recruits had gotten many different tasks, so it could be seen where their talents lay. Jon liked the afternoons when he was sent out with Ghost to bring game for the Lord Commander, but those were rare. When he wasn't hunting, he was helping Donal Noye in the armory, spinning Weststone and pumping bellows. If not that, he was used as a messenger, or a guard, or even a stable boy. Once or twice, he even helped Maester Aemon with his birds, or counted inventory for Bowen Marsh. That afternoon, he was to scatter gravel on top of the wall. A lonely and boring task, even with Ghost at his side, but Jon didn't mind. On good days, one could see half the world from the wall. It was a great place for thinking, and today, Jon was thinking about Samwell Tarly and, oddly, about Tyrion Lannister. Mostly, he was wondering what Tyrion would say about the fat boy, once the dwarf told him that men would rather deny the truth than face it. Jon knew that the world was full of cravens pretending to be heroes, and thought maybe it was actually an odd sort of courage that made Tarly admit his cowardice. His sore shoulder slowed Jon down. It was late in the afternoon when he finished graveling the paths. He watched the sun turn the western sky red, and finally, when it dunked behind the horizon, Jon went down too. Dinner was almost done when Jon and Ghost entered the common hall. A group was playing dice near the fire. Jon's friends were laughing at a story Pip was telling. He was a born liar with many voices, and he didn't tell a tale as much as he lived it, playing all the parts himself. If he had to embody a girl, he was using a high falsetto voice that made the friends laugh, and every time a eunuch was part of the story, his voice grew eerily similar to Sir Alice's. Jon liked Pip's antics as much as the next boy, but tonight he turned away, and went to sit with Samwell Tarly, who occupied a spot on the benches as far from everybody as he possibly could. Samwell was finishing his pork pie when Jon sat down. The boy stared at Ghost with wide eyes. Is that a wolf? A direwolf, Jon said. His name is Ghost. The direwolf is the sigil of my father's house. Ours is a striding huntsman, Samwell Tarly said. Do you like to hunt? Samwell shuddered. I hate it. He looked as if he was going to cry again. What's wrong now? Jon asked him. Why are you always so frightened? Sam just shook his head, too scared to talk. Pip's squeaking voice earned a burst of laughter as Jon stood. Let's go outside. Sam's round face was suspicious. Why? What will we do outside? Talk, Jon said. Have you seen the wall? I'm fat, not blind, Samwell Tarly said. Of course I saw it. It's 700 feet high. But he stood, wrapping himself in his fur-lined cloak, and followed Jon out. He was still wary, as though thinking a cruel prank was ahead. Ghost legged it behind them. I never thought it would be like this, Sam said as they walked, his words steaming. Already, he was panting as he tried to keep up with Jon. All the buildings are falling down, and it's so cold? Frost was crunching under their boots as they went. Sam nodded miserably. I hate the cold, he said. Last night, I woke up in the dark and the fire had gone out, and I was certain I was going to freeze to death by morning. It must have been warmer where you come from. I never saw snow until last month. We were crossing the Barrowlands, me and the men my father sent to see me north, and this white stuff began to fall, like a soft rain. At first I thought it was so beautiful, like feathers drifting from the sky, but it kept on and on, until I was frozen to the bone. The men had crusts of snow in their beards and more on their shoulders, and still it kept coming. I was afraid it would never end. Jon smiled. The wall towered over them, glistening in the moonlight. In the clear sky, stars were burning. Are they going to make me go up there? Sam asked. His face soured further as he looked at the wooden stairs. I'll die if I have to climb that. There's a winch, Jon said, pointing. They can draw you up in a cage. Samwell Tarly sniffed. I don't like high places. It was too much, even for Jon, and he frowned. Are you afraid of everything? He asked. I don't understand. If you are truly so craven, why are you here? Why would a coward want to join the Night's Watch? Samwell looked at him for a long moment, his face darkening. Then he sat down on the frost-covered ground and started to cry, sobbing so his whole large body was shaking. Jon didn't know what to do. The tears came as if they would never end. Ghost, however, had the answer. He moved closer, silently, and licked Sam's face. The boy cried out in surprise, but in the next moment, he was laughing. Jon joined in the laughter. Soon, they were both sitting, wrapped in their cloaks with the direwolf between them. Jon recalled how Robb had found the wolves when they were pups. It felt like ages ago. Then he told Sam about Winterfell. Sometimes I dream about it, he said. I'm walking down this long, empty hall. My voice echoes all around, but no one answers, so I walk faster. Opening doors, shouting names. I don't even know who I'm looking for. Most nights it's my father, but sometimes it's Robb instead, or my little sister Arya, or my uncle. Talking about Benjen saddened him. The man was still missing. The old bear sent out rangers to find Benjen Stark. 6 times men went out, but all they found was the marks Benjens had left on the trees. There were stony highlands in the northwest, and there the markings ceased altogether. Do you ever find anyone in your dream? Sam asked. Jon shook his head. No one. The castle is always empty. Jon never told anyone this, and he couldn't fathom why he did now. It felt bad to talk about the dream. Even the ravens are gone from the rookery, and the stables are full of bones. That always scares me. I start to run then, throwing open doors, climbing the tower 3 steps at a time, screaming for someone, for anyone. And then I find myself in front of the doors to the crypts. It's black inside, and I can see the steps spiraling down. Somehow, I know I have to go down there, but I don't want to. I'm afraid of what might be waiting for me. The old kings of winter are down there, sitting on their thrones with stone wolves at their feet and iron swords across their laps. But it's not them I'm afraid of. I scream that I'm not a Stark, that this isn't my place. But it's no good. I have to go anyway. So I start down, feeling the walls as I descend, with no torch to light the way. It gets darker and darker until I want to scream. Jon stopped, feeling rather embarrassed. That's when I always wake. And when he did, he thought, his skin was always clammy from sweat, and he was still cold, and Ghost would jump on the bed to comfort him. On nights like that, he went back to sleep with his face pressed into the wolf's fur. Do you dream of Horn Hill? Jon asked. No. Sam's mouth grew tight and hard. I hated it there. Sam scratched Ghost behind the ear, and Jon let the silence envelop them. After a while, Sam started to talk, and Jon listened. The mystery of how a self-proclaiming coward ended up on the wall was solved for him. The House of Tarly was an old one, bannerman to Mace Tyrell, Lord of Highgarden and Warden of the South. As the eldest son of Lord Randyll Tarly, Sam was the heir of land and honor, a strong keep, and even a Valyrian sword called Heartsbane, a blade 500 years old. But if Samwell's father was glad to have sired a son, he soon had forgotten it. The boy grew up to be clumsy and soft. He loved music, making up songs, and wearing comfortable velvets and playing in the kitchen where the cooks made lemon cakes. He was passionate about books, kittens, and dancing. What he hated was the sight of blood, and he got ill even if a chicken was slaughtered in front of him. Masters in arms came, a dozen of them, but none was able to forge a knight out of Sam, however much his father wanted it. No amount of cursing, beating, whipping, and starving would change that. Some made him sleep in chainmail, others shamed him, but Samwell remained fat and frightened. At last, Lord Randyll, angered and loathing, grew in him towards his firstborn. One time, Sam confided, whispering, 2 men came to the castle, warlocks from Karth with white skin and blue lips. They slaughtered a bull Orcus and made me bathe in the hot blood, but it didn't make me brave as they promised. I got sick and wretched. Father had them scourged. At last, after having 3 girls in 3 years, Lady Tarly gave birth to another boy. Lord Randyll ignored Sam from then on as if he never existed, giving all his time to the new boy, who turned out to be fierce and robust, just as the old man always wanted. Years of peace followed, which Samwell Tarly spent with books and music. This lasted until his 15th name day. Early in the morning, his horse was already waiting for him. 3 men-at-arms took him to the woods where his father was waiting for him. Lord Randyll was skinning a deer when Sam arrived. "You are almost a man grown now, and my heir," Lord Randyll Tarly had said to his eldest son, his long knife working as he spoke. "You have given me no cause to disown you, but neither will I allow you to inherit the land and title that should be Dickon's. Heartsbane must go to a man strong enough to wield her, and you are not worthy to touch her hilt. So I have decided that you shall this day announce that you wish to take the Black. You will forsake all claim to your brother's inheritance and start north before evenfall. If you do not, then on the morrow we shall have a hunt, and somewhere in these woods your horse will stumble, and you will be thrown from the saddle to die. Or so I will tell your mother. She has a woman's heart and finds it in her to cherish even you, and I have no wish to cause her pain. Please do not imagine that it will truly be that easy should you think to defy me. Nothing would please me more than to hunt you down like the pig you are." His arms were red to the elbow as he laid the skinning knife aside. "So there is your choice. The Night's Watch," he reached inside the deer, ripped out his heart and held it in his fist. "Or this." Sam recalled all of this in a flat voice, as if it had happened to someone else. Oddly enough, Jon thought, the other boy did not cry now. After Sam finished speaking, they just sat there, listening to the cold wind. Finally, Jon talked. "We should go back to the common hall." "Why?" Sam asked. Jon shrugged. "There's hot cider to drink, or mulled wine if you prefer. Some nights Daeron sings for us, if the mood is on him. He was a singer before. Well, not truly, but almost, an apprentice singer." "How did he come here?" Sam asked. Lord Rowan of Goldengrove found him in bed with his daughter. The girl was 2 years older, and Daeron swears she helped him through her window, but under her father's eyes she named it so here he is. When Maester Aemon heard him sing, he said his voice was honey poured over thunder. Jon smiled. "Toad sometimes sings too, if you call it singing, drinking songs he learned in his father's wine sink. Pip says his voice is piss poured over a fart." They both laughed at that. "I should like to hear them both," Sam said, "but they would not want me there." His face got anxious. "He's going to make me fight again on the morrow, isn't he?" "He is," Jon said. Clumsily, Sam got to his feet. "I had better try to sleep." He drew his cloak tighter around him and walked off. The others were all still in the common hall when Jon and Ghost returned. "Where have you been?" Pip asked. "Talking with Sam," he said. "He truly is craven," said Gren. At supper, there were still places on the bench when he got his pie, but he was too scared to come sit with us. The Lord of Ham thinks he's too good to eat with the likes of us, suggested Jaren. I saw him eat a pork pie, Toad said, smirking. Do you think it was a brother? He made oinking noises. Stop it, Jon snapped angrily. The others fell silent, surprised by his sudden anger. Listen to me, Jon said, and he told them what he wanted to do. Pip was with him. That was no surprise. More so, Valdihr, who backed Jon up immediately. Gren hesitated, but Jon knew how to convince him. One after another, they all agreed. Jon cajoled and shamed and threatened until they did. All of them but Rast. You girls do as you please, Rast said, but if Thorne sends me against Lady Piggy, I'm going to slice me off a rasher of bacon. He laughed in Jon's face and left. Later that night, when everyone was asleep, 3 of them visited Rast in his cell. Gren held down his arms and Pip took care of his legs by sitting on them. Then Ghost jumped onto Rast's chest and the boy's breathing quickened. The direwolf's eyes were burning red as his fangs scratched Rast's throat, just enough to break the skin. Remember, we know where you sleep, Jon said softly. The next morning, Rast told Albert and Toad that he cut himself while shaving, and nobody, not even Rast, would ever hurt Samwell Tarly from that day forward. The boys would just stand and gently slap aside Sam's clumsy strikes, and even if Sir Alliser screamed at them to attack the fat boy, they would just tap his breastplate lightly. The Master-at-Arms raged, called them names and threatened them, but nobody would ever hurt Samwell. And a few nights later, following Jon's urging, Samwell joined them for the evening meal, sitting beside Valdihr. It took him weeks, but at last he even joined their conversation. He may have been fat and clumsy, but Samwell Tarly was not stupid. Eventually he visited Jon at his cell. I don't know what you did, he said, but I know you did it. He looked away awkwardly. I've never had a friend before. We're not friends, Jon said. He put a hand on Sam's shoulder. We're brothers. And he meant it. Jon reflected after Sam left his room. He would always love Robb and Bran and Rickon, but he was never a Stark. He was never one of them. Catelyn made sure of that. And though the walls of Winterfell still showed up in his dreams, Castle Black was here and now, and he had new brothers, Samwell and Valdihr, Gren and Pip, and all the others of the Night's Watch. My uncle spoke truly, he whispered to Ghost. He wished to see Benjen again, so he could tell him that. And this is where Jon IV ends. Now, this chapter mentions someone who becomes very important in the later books and might play a decisive role in the Winds of Winter. Randyll Tarly. This belief, from Kevin Lannister's opinion of the Lord of Horn Hill as the finest soldier in the realm, a poor hand for peacetime, but with Tywin dead, there's no better man to finish this war. And in Kevin's epilogue, he thinks that Tarly is the real danger, a narrow man, but iron-willed and shrewd. And he's in possession of Marjorie at the end of A Dance with Dragons. It can also be easily argued that Samwell is a George R.R. Martin stand-in, since, like George, Sam appears useless in a medieval society, but is actually vitally important, and only thanks to modern society have we started to really value people like Samwell and George. Now, here are the differences between the HBO TV show and book. In the show, Castle Black is shown to have walls, but in the books it has none. So the Night's Watch can only defend against enemies coming from the north, and not rebel against the Seven Kingdoms, which has happened in the past. In the show, it is Rast who attacks Samwell, and then Jon alone who has to take on Rast, Gren, and Pip. In the show, Sam tells Jon about his father ordering him to join the Night's Watch while skinning a deer. This scenario was used for the introduction of Tywin when he is talking to Jaime about living up to his destiny, which exemplifies Tywin and Randyll being very similar characters. It's the Hands Tawny that's the cause of all the trouble, my lords, the commander of the City Watch told the King's Council. The King's Tawny, Ned corrected, cringing. I assure you, the Hand wants no part of it. Call her what you will, my lord. Knights have been arriving from all over the realm, and for every knight we get 2 free riders, 3 craftsmen, 6 men-at-arms, a dozen merchants, 2 dozen and more thieves than I dare guess. This cursed heat had half the city in a fever to start, and now with all these visitors, last night we had a drowning, a tavern riot, 3 knife fights, 2 fires, robberies beyond count, and a drunken horse race down the Street of the Sisters. The night before a woman's head was found in the Great Sept, floating in the Rainbow Pool. No one seems to know how it got there or who it belongs to. How dreadful, Varys said, shuddering. Lord Renly Baratheon was not as empathetic. If you cannot keep the king's peace, Janos, perhaps the city watch should be commanded by someone who can. Janos Slynt, a jowly, stout man, now puffed himself up angrily, his head reddening. Aegon the Dragon himself could not keep the peace, Lord Renly. I need more men. How many? Ned asked, leaning forward. As always, King Robert did not see it necessary to be present, so it was the Hand making the calls. As many as can be gotten, Lord Hand. Hire 50 new men, Ned told him. Lord Baelish will see that you get the coin. I will, Littlefinger said. You will. You found 40,000 golden dragons for a champion's purse. Surely you can scrape together a few coppers to keep the king's peace. Ned turned back to Janos Slynt. I will also give you 20 good swords from my own household guard to serve with the watch until the crowds have left. All thanks, Lord Hand, Slynt said, bowing. I promise you they shall be put to good use. After the Lord Commander left, Lord Eddard addressed the rest of the council. The sooner this folly is done with, the better I shall like it. The gold the treasury didn't have spent on this was bad enough, and so was all the crime the event brought. But what Ned hated even more was that everyone insisted on calling it the Hand's Tourney, as if he wanted any of this. What's more, Robert thought he should have felt honored. The realm prospers from such events, my lord, Grand Maester Pycelle said. They bring the great the chance of glory, and the lowly a respite from their woes. And put coins in many a pocket, Littlefinger added. Every inn in the city is full, and the are walking bow-legged and jingling with each step. Lord Renly laughed. We're fortunate my brother Stannis is not with us. Remember the time he proposed to outlaw brothels? The king asked him if perhaps he'd like to outlaw eating, shitting, and breathing while he was at it. If truth be told, I oftentimes wonder how Stannis ever got that ugly daughter of his. He goes to his marriage bed like a man marching to a battlefield, with a grim look in his eyes and a determination to do his duty. Ned did not find this funny. I wonder about your brother Stannis as well. I wonder when he intends to end his visit to Dragonstone and resume his seat on this council. No doubt as soon as we've scourged all those into the sea, Littlefinger replied, causing more laughter. I have heard quite enough about oars for one day, Ned said, rising. Until the morrow. Harwin was guarding the door of the Tower of the Hand when Ned returned. Summon Jory to my chambers and tell your father to saddle my horse, Ned told him. As you say, my lord. He was too tired, and it made him roar, Ned thought as he climbed the stairs. He missed his wife, and the sound of his sons practicing swordplay, and even the cold of the north. Once alone, he took off his silks and sat, looking at the book while waiting for Jory. The lineages and histories of the great houses of the Seven Kingdoms, with descriptions of many high lords and noble ladies and their children, by Grand Maester Mallion. Pycelle was right about it, a truly boring read, but Jon Arryn had wanted to read it, and Ned was sure he had his reasons. What they were, Lord Eddard couldn't see just yet. An old book it was. A century or so went since it was written, and nobody alive today could be in it. Ned opened the book again, reading the pages about the Lannisters, hoping to finally see what Jon Arryn had seen. Old family the Lannisters were, going back to Lan the Clever, who lived at the Age of Heroes alongside Bran the Builder. In the tales, Lan fought not with weapons, but his wits, and once stole the sun to brighten his blonde hair. Ned thought Lan might even be able to see through the damned book. There was a knock on the door, and Ned closed the book. Jory Castle entered. "I've promised the city watch 20 of my guard until the tourney is done," Lord Eddard told him. "I rely on you to make the choice. Give Alan the command and make certain the men understand that they are needed to stop fights, not start them." Ned got up and took out a light linen tunic. "Did you find the stable boy?" "The watchman, my lord," Jory said. "He vows he'll never touch another horse." "What did he have to say?" "He claims he knew Lord Arryn well. Fast friends they were," Jory snorted. "The hand always gave the lads a copper on their name days, he says. Had a way with horses. Never rode his mounts too hard, and brought them carrots and apples, so they were always pleased to see him." "Carrots and apples," Ned repeated. Another useless boy. What's worse, he was the last of the 4 Littlefinger had found. Sir Hugh was unhelpful, as arrogant as a new knight could possibly be, demanding Ned visit him personally and refusing to talk to Jory. The service girl was much more polite, recalling that Lord Arryn had been reading too much, which made him melancholic and gruff. The potboy, as it turned out, had never talked to Jon Arryn, but knew many gossips. How Arryn and the king were quarrelling, how the hand barely ate, how he was obsessed with breeding hunting hounds. There was talk about Jon Arryn having made a magnificent new armor for himself too, with the help of Stannis Baratheon. Did our watchman recall anything else of note? "The lad swears Lord Jon was as strong as half a man his age, often went riding with Lord Stannis, he says." Stannis once again, Ned thought. It was curious. Jon Arryn and Stannis were always cordial, but never friendly. And now Stannis is gone, hiding out at Dragonstone, the old Targaryen fasthold. There was no word about his return. "Where did they go on these rides?" Ned asked. "The boy said they visited a brothel." "A brothel," Ned said. "The Lord of the Eyrie and the Hand of the King visited a brothel with Stannis Baratheon." Ned shook his head, wondering what Renly would say to this. While Robert's lust was immortalized in songs, Stannis was different. Stern, humorless, grim, living for nothing but his duty. "The boy insists it's true." "Which brothel?" Ned asked. The boy did not know. The guards would. "A pity Lysa carried them off to the Vale," Ned said dryly. "The gods are doing their best to vex us. Lady Lysa, Maester Coleman, Lord Stannis. Everyone who might actually know the truth of what happened to Jon Arryn is 1,000 leagues away." "Will you summon Lord Stannis back from Dragonstone?" "Not yet," Ned said. "Not until I have a better notion of what this is all about and where he stands." The whole thing bothered Ned. Why would Stannis leave? Was he behind Jon's murder? Or maybe scared for his own life? A logical assumption, only nothing scared Stannis Baratheon. He once lived on rats for an entire year while holding Storm's End's fortress. "Bring me my doublet if you would, the grey with the direwolf sigil. I want this armourer to know who I am. It might make him more forthcoming." Jory went to the wardrobe. "Lord Renly is brother to Lord Stannis as well as the king. Yet it seems that he was not invited on these rides." Ned wasn't sure he liked Renly, despite his friendly ways and easy smiles. Just a few days ago, Renly showed him a beautiful gold locket with a miniature painting of a lovely little girl in it. Renly wanted to know if the girl reminded Ned of anyone, and was disappointed when she didn't. She was Margaery Tyrell, who people often said looked like Lyanna. No, Ned had told him, bemused. Maybe Renly, so like the young Robert once was, had a passion for a girl he thought was like Lyanna. The thought made Ned uncomfortable. Jory helped him put the doublet on. "Perhaps Lord Stannis will return for Robert's tourney," he said, as Jory laced the garment up. "That would be a stroke of fortune, my lord," Jory said. Ned belted on a sword. "In other words, not bloody likely." His smile was grim. Jory draped a cloak over Ned's shoulders, fastening it with the hand's badge. "The armourer lives above his shop in a large house at the top of the Street of Steel. Alan knows the way, my lord." Ned nodded. "The gods help this potboy if he sent me off herring after shadows." It was barely a clue, but Ned had never known Jon Arryn to wear silver-plated, fantastical armors. There must have been a reason, unless he changed his views, of course. It was possible, but Ned still wanted to make sure. "Is there any other service I might perform?" I suppose you'd best begin visiting ore-houses. Hard duty, my lord, Jory grinned. The men will be glad to help. Portha has made a fair start already. Ned's favorite horse was waiting for him. Two of his men, Varley and Jax, accompanied him, wearing steels despite the heat. Ned passed under the king's gate and into the city. He felt eyes on him, and he urged his horse to hurry. The guards followed. Ned was anxious and kept looking behind himself. Tomard and Desmond left early that day to make sure the route they must take was safe, and they passed it unfollowed. Yet Ned felt nervous. The thought of the spider and his little birds ate at him. It was called River Gate on maps, the spot where the Street of Steel began, but people always just called it the Mud Gate. A man on stilts went by, followed by delighted children squealing. A bit further, two boys of Bran's age were fighting with sticks, surrounded by a small audience. The duel ended when an old woman opened a window over the boys and threw a bucket of something on them. Shadowed by the wall, farmers stood, selling their produce. They found the Mudgate open and manned by the golden-cloaked city watchman. Riders came from the west, prompting the watchmen into action. They commanded people aside so the company could pass. It belonged to a knight with a long black banner depicting a night sky cut up by purple lightning. "Make way for Lord Beric," a writer shouted. "Make way for Lord Beric." And behind them rode the lord himself on a black stallion, his hair red gold and his cloak starry like the night sky. "Here to fight in the hands tourney, my lord?" a guardsman asked. "Here to win the hands tourney," Lord Beric shouted back as the crowd cheered. Ned and his men turned off the Street of Steel and climbed a winding path between blacksmiths working at open forges, free riders bargaining for equipment, and ironmongers selling old blades. As they went, the buildings became larger. The man Ned wanted to see lived all the way up the hill in a large house overlooking the street. His double doors were carved with a hunting scene. Ned left his horse with Jax and opened the door. A slim serving girl recognized Ned's badge and sigil right away, and her master came hurried. "Wine for the king's hand," he told the girl, gesturing Ned to a couch. "I am Tobo Molt, my lord. Please put yourself at ease." He was dressed richly, with a necklace sporting a precious stone large as an egg. "If you are in need of new arms for the hands tourney, you have come to the right shop." Ned didn't correct him. "My work is costly, and I make no apologies for that, my lord," he said as he filled two matching silver goblets. "You will not find craftsmanship equal to mine anywhere in the Seven Kingdoms, I promise you. Visit every forge in King's Landing if you like, and compare for yourself. Any village smith can hammer out a shirt of mail. My work is art." Ned tasted the wine and let the man talk. Tobo informed him that the Knight of Flowers bought all his armor here, as well as many of the High Lords, and even Lord Renly himself. The green plate with the golden antlers, the man boasted, was his work, and no other armorer could get even close to producing that color. Tobo figured out a way to put the color into the steel itself instead of painting it, he told Ned. Then he went on, saying the hand might need a new sword, in which case he will be pleased to hear that Tobo learnt at the Cahors forges how to work Valyrian steel. He knew the spells to reforge it. "The direwolf is the sigil of House Stark, is it not? I could fashion a direwolf helm so real that children will run away from you in the street," he vowed. Ned smiled. "Did you make a falcon helm for Lord Arryn?" Tobo Moat got quiet and only talked after a long moment, putting his wine down. "The hand did call upon me, with Lord Stannis, the king's brother. I regret to say they did not honor me with their patronage." Ned said nothing and just looked at the man evenly. He learned long ago that silence was sometimes better than questions. "They asked to see the boy," the armorer said, "so I took them back to the forge." "The boy," Ned echoed. He had no idea who that boy might have been. "I should like to see the boy as well." Tobo Moat gave him a careful look. "As you wish, my lord," he said, his voice now cold. He got up and Lord Eddard followed him across a small yard and into a stone barn. Hot air hit Ned as the armorer opened the door. There were forges in each corner and the air was heavy with the smell of sulfur. Journeymen were hammering and bare-chested apprentices worked the bellows. The boy Tobbo called over was about Robb's age, but heavy with muscles. "This is Lord Stark, the new Hand of the King," the armorer told him. The boy looked at him sullenly, with blue eyes under sweat, soaked with hair black as ink. A shadow of a beard darkened his jaw. "This is Gendry, strong for his age, and he works hard. Show the hand that helmet you made, lad." Shyly, the boy went to the bench and showed Ned a steel helmet shaped like a bull's head, curving horns and all. Lord Eddard examined it, turned it over in his hands. It was still raw, but masterfully made. "This is fine work. I would be pleased if you would let me buy it." The boy snatched it back. "It is not for sale." Tobbo Moat looked terrified. "Boy, this is the king's hand. If his lordship wants this helm, make him a gift of it. He honors you by asking." "I made it for me," the boy said stubbornly. "100 pardons, my lord," his master said hurriedly to Ned. "The boy is crude as new steel, and like new steel, would profit from some beating. That helm is a journeyman's work at best. Forgive him, and I promise I will craft you a helm like none you have ever seen." "He has done nothing that requires my forgiveness. Gendry, when Lord Arryn came to see you, what did you talk about?" "He asked me questions is all, my lord." "What sort of questions?" The boy shrugged. "How was I? And was I well treated? And if I liked my work? And stuff about my mother. Who she was and what she looked like and all." "What did you tell him?" Ned asked. Gendry shoved his black hair back off his forehead. "She died when I was little. She had yellow hair, and sometimes she used to sing to me, I remember. She worked in an alehouse." "Did Lord Stannis question you as well?" "The bold one? No, not him. He never said no word, just glared at me, like I was some who had done for his daughter." "Mind your filthy tongue," Tobio said. "This is the king's own hand." The boy lowered his eyes. "A smart boy, but stubborn. That helm, the others call him bullheaded, so he threw it in their teeth." Ned touched the boy's head. "Look at me, Gendry." The apprentice obeyed. Ned studied his face, his jaw, his startling blue eyes. "Yes," he thought, "I see it now. Go back to your work, lad. I'm sorry to have bothered you." Lord Eddard left the foundry and walked back to the house with the armorer. "Who paid the boy's apprentice fee?" he asked lightly. Mott appeared fretful. "You saw the boy? Such a strong boy. Those hands of his? Those hands were made for hammers. He had such promise, I took him on without fee." "The truth now," Ned urged. "The streets are full of strong boys. The day you take on an apprentice without a fee will be the day the wall comes down. Who paid for him?" "A lord," the master said reluctantly. "He gave no name and wore no sigil on his coat. He paid in gold, twice the customary sum, and said he was paying once for the boy and once for my silence." "Describe him." "He was stout, round of shoulder, not so tall as you, brown beard, but there was a bit of red in it, I'll swear. He wore a rich cloak, that I do remember. Heavy purple velvet, worked with silver threads, but the hood shadowed his face, and I never did see him clear." Tobbo hesitated for a moment. "My lord, I want no trouble." "None of us want trouble, but I fear these are troubled times, Master Moat," Ned said. "You know who the boy is." "I am only an armorer, my lord. I know what I am told." "You know who the boy is," Ned repeated patiently. "That is not a question." "The boy is my apprentice," Tobbo said. He looked at Ned stubbornly. "Who he was before he came to me? That's none of my concern." Ned nodded and decided that after all, he liked the master armorer. "If the day ever comes when Gendry would rather wield a sword than forge one, send him to me. He has the look of a warrior. Until then, you have my thanks, Master Mott, and my promise. Should I ever want a helm to frighten children, this will be the first place I visit." Ned's men were waiting outside. "Did you find anything, my lord?" as Ned mounted his horse. "I did," Ned told him, deep in thought. Why did Jon Arryn want to see Robert's bastard, and why did he die for it? And this is where Eddard VI ends. Now, in A Storm of Swords, Tobbo Mott melts Eddard's Valyrian steel sword, Ice, to forge 2 new swords at Tywin Lannister's request. The armorer admits that he tried to colour the swords the crimson of House Lannister, but despite his spells, the steel darkened to grey and red patterns. However, whatever he means by spells, we have no idea. One sword is given to King Joffrey I Baratheon, who names it Widow's Wail. The other is given to Jaime Lannister, who names it Oathkeeper, when he gives it in turn to Brienne of Tarth. Here are the differences between the HBO TV show and book. In the book, the conversation between Jory and Hugh occurs off-screen. In the show, both Mott and Gendry don't mention Stannis Baratheon accompanying Jon Arryn when he came to meet Gendry. In the show, like everyone else, Gendry's character is aged up. In the books, he is 16 years old, and in the show, he looks to be over 20. Catelyn 5. "My lady, you ought to cover your head," Sir Roderick told her. "You will take a chill." "It is only water, Sir Roderick," Catelyn replied. Her hair was heavy with rain, and a strand was stuck to her forehead wetly. She imagined she must have looked ragged, but she didn't care. The raindrops on her face felt like mother's kisses, and she liked that. It reminded her of her childhood back at Riverrun. She imagined the godswood there, branches dripping water, her brothers' laughter as they played catch, Lysa making mud pies with her, their fingers dirty, Littlefinger ate them and got sick. They were all so young. She thought she had forgotten about all this a long time ago. Up north, the rain was cold and hard and often turned to ice, killing crops instead of nurturing them, not a sort of rain little girls were playing in. "I am soaked through," Sir Roderick complained. "Even my bones are wet." Woods leaned over them and the horses' hooves made little sucking noises in the mud. "We will want a fire tonight, my lady, and a hot meal would serve us both. There is an inn at the crossroads up ahead," Catelyn told him. Catelyn slept there many times when travelling with her father. Lord Hoster Tully used to be restless. Catelyn remembered the innkeep, a fat woman called Marcia Heddle, who smiled a lot and was always chewing sour leaf. She made honey-soaked sweet cakes, which Catelyn liked, but she didn't care for the smiles painted red by the sour leaf. "An inn," Sir Roderick said wistfully. "If only, but we dare not risk it. If we wish to remain unknown, I think it best we seek out some small holdfast." He drifted off, listening. The sounds of clinking chainmail and splashed water drifted up to them. "Riders," he said, his hand dropping to the hilt of his sword. Not even on the King's Road were they perfectly safe. They went around a bend and found them, a company of armed men trying to cross a running stream. The banner they carried was too soaked to see, hanging limp, but the riders wore indigo cloaks with a silver eagle on them. "Malisters," Sir Roderick whispered to her, though she knew it as well. "My lady, best pull up your hood." Catelyn did not. She saw Lord Jason Mallister and his son Patrick, accompanied by knights. They were going the opposite direction towards King's Landing, and Catelyn knew they must be planning on participating in the Hands tourney. They were the umpteenth Catelyn and Sir Roderick saw in the last few days. Everyone seemed to travel south these days. Catelyn looked at Lord Jason openly. Last she saw him was at her wedding, where the Mallisters, as bannermen for the Tullys, were present. He was younger then, but he had salt in his brown hair now. He looked just as proud though. He looked fearless, and she envied that, as she feared so much lately. Lord Jason nodded curtly as they passed, but just as a High Lord would nod at a stranger. He did not recognize Catelyn. "He did not know you," Sir Roderick said after, wondering. He saw a pair of mud-spattered travellers by the side of the road, wet and tired. It would never occur to him to suspect that one of them was the daughter of his liege lord. "I think we should be safe enough at the inn, Sir Roderick." It was almost fully dark when they reached it, near the crossroads of the Trident. Masha Heddle was fatter and older, but she still chewed her sour leaves. She barely looked at them. "2 rooms at the top of the stair, that's all there is," she said, chewing. "They're under the bell tower. You won't be missing meals, though there's some thinks it's too noisy. Can't be helped, we're full up, or near as, makes no matter. It's those rooms or the road." They accepted the rooms, noisy as they might have been. "Leave your boots down here," Masha told them after they'd paid. The boy will clean them. I won't have you tracking mud up my stairs. Mind the bell. Those who come late to meals don't eat." The ghastly red smiles Catelyn remembered remained absent, and so did the sweet cakes. The bell was indeed deafening. Catelyn was sitting at the window, wearing dry clothes. Then it started to toll. Through the glass full of bubbles and swept by rain, she could just see the muddy crossroads. This made her think. Turn west and they could ride to Riverrun. Catelyn yearned for her father's advice about all the things that troubled her right now. And if Winterfell needed to get ready for a war, so did Riverrun. So much closer to Castle Rock and King's Landing. But no, Lord Hoster was a weak man now, in bed for almost 2 years. And Catelyn's worries would only tax him further. To the east, the roads would be more treacherous, rocky foothills and thick forests up until the mountain keep of the Arryns, called the Eyrie, and the Fingers beyond. Catelyn would find her sister here, as well as some of the answers Ned was after. Lysa must have known more than she put in her letter. She might even have proof with which Ned could take the Lannisters down. Not to mention, if war came, they would be needing the Arryns and all the houses bannered to them. But the road between the mountains was dangerous. Animals, wild men, and nature itself threatened the traveller. Even Jon Arryn, powerful man as he was, only risked it with many swords on his side. Catelyn only had one old knight, more loyal than strong. No, she decided, Riverrun or the Eyrie are not where she was needed. Winterfell and her sons must be her only destination. She just needed to cross the neck, and she was north, where she could get help from any of Lord Eddard's bannermen. Though she couldn't see it in the rain and dusk now, Catelyn knew that just across stood the marketplace, and half a mile down the road a village, some 50 cottages surrounding a sept. Maybe more than that after the long summer. The King's Road ran north from here, across fertile valleys and prospering towns. And alongside the road, the houses, Blackwoods and Brackens, always quarrelling with one another. Lady went, last of her family, all alone, the Freys in their twin castles, the Darrys and the Rygers and the Moontons, and all the smaller families, all loyal to the Tullys, to her father. But would that be enough if war comes? And would the houses even rally? Some fought on the Targaryen side back in the day, and some, like the Freys, didn't fight at all, just waited to join the winner. No, Catelyn thought, they must not let a war happen. So Rodrik stepped in the room just as the bell fell silent. "We had best make haste if we hope to eat tonight, my lady." "It might be safer if we were not knight and lady until we pass the neck," she told him. "Common travellers attract less notice. A father and daughter taken to the road on some family business, say." "As you say, my lady," Sir Rodrik agreed. She laughed and he realised his mistake. "The old courtesies die hard, my daughter." He reached for his long-gone whiskers and sighed. Catelyn took his arm. "Come, father," she said. "You'll find that Masha Heddle sets a good table, I think. But try not to praise her, you truly don't want to see her smile." The common room was long, with wooden kegs at one end and a fireplace at the other. There was a serving boy running around, and Masha drew beer from the kegs. The room was crowded, and the inn made for odd companions. Dyers with stained hands sat beside fishermen, muscly smiths next to old septons, hard sellswords talking to plump merchants. There were too many swords present for Catelyn's preference. 3 near the fire sported the red stallion of the Brackens, and a bigger party displayed the twin towers of House Frey. They were too young to know her face. The oldest must have still been a child when Catelyn moved to the north. Sir Rodrik found seats for them near the kitchen. Across them sat a handsome young man with his wood harp. "7 blessings to you, good folk," he said as they sat. "And to you, singer," Catelyn returned. Sir Rodrik demanded bread and meat and beer hungrily. The young singer stared at them and fired question after question, faster than Catelyn could have answered. "We left for King's Landing a fortnight ago," she replied, answering the safest of his questions. "That's where I'm bound," the youth said. As Catelyn thought he would. The singer was more interested in his own story rather than theirs. Singers always love their own voices, Catelyn mused. "The hands tawny means rich lords with fat purses. The last time I came away with more silver than I could carry, or would have if I hadn't lost it all betting on the Kingslayer to win the day." "The gods frown on the gambler," Sir Roderick said sternly. As a true Northman, he disapproved of tournaments as much as Lord Eddard himself. "They frowned on me for certain," the singer said. "Your cruel gods and the Knight of Flowers altogether did me in." "No doubt that was a lesson for you," Sir Roderick said. "It was. This time my coin will champion Sir Loras." The knight reached for his whiskers again. He couldn't answer the singer as the serving boy came, bringing bread and brown meat on skewers. Others had small onions on them with mushrooms and fire peppers. Sir Roderick settled down with a good appetite as the boy ran to fetch some beer. "My name is Marillion," the singer said, plucking a string on his wood harp. "Doubtless you've heard me play somewhere?" "I fear not," she told him. He played a tentative note. "That is your loss," he said. "Who was the finest singer you've ever heard?" "Alia of Bravos," Sir Roderick answered at once. "Oh, I'm much better than that old stick," Marillion said. "If you have the silver for a song, I'll gladly show you." "I might have a copper or two, but I'd sooner toss it down a well than pay for your howling," Sir Roderick grumbled. He was well known for his opinion about musicians. It was all right for girls to play the harp, but he could not fathom why a healthy young boy would pick one up when he could hold a sword instead. "Your grandfather has a sour nature," Marillion said to Catelyn. "I meant to do you honor. A homage to your beauty. In truth, I was made to sing for kings and high lords." "Oh, I can see that," Catelyn said. "Lord Tully is fond of song, I hear. No doubt you've been to Riverrun?" 100 times, the singer said airily. "They keep a chamber for me, and the young lord is like a brother." Catelyn smiled, thinking about his brother Edmure. A singer once betted a girl Edmure fancied, and he hated the lot ever since. "And Winterfell?" she asked him. "Have you travelled north?" "Why would I?" Marillion asked. "It's all blizzards and bearskins up there, and the Starks know no music but the howling of wolves." In the distance, a door opened and closed. "Innkeep," a servant's voice called out. "We have horses that want stabling, and my Lord of Lannister requires a room and a hot bath." "Oh gods," Sir Roderick said. Marcia was bowing and smiling her terrible red smile. "I'm sorry, my lord, truly. We're full up, every room." 4 men, Catelyn counted. 1 was old, in the blacks of the Night's Watch, and 2 servants, flagging the 4th small figure. "My men will sleep in your stable, and as for myself, well, I do not require a large room, as you can plainly see." He grinned mockingly. "So long as the fire's warm and the straw reasonably free of fleas, I am a happy man." Masha Heddle was troubled. "My lord, there's nothing. It's the tourney, there's no help for it, oh!" Tyrion Lannister pulled out a coin and flipped it in the air, then caught it with quick fingers. As he did it again, Catelyn could see the flash of gold. A free rider in blue jumped to his feet. "You're welcome to my room, my lord." "Now there's a clever man," Lannister said, flicking the coin across the room. The free rider caught it in the air, still spinning. "And the nimble one to boot." The dwarf turned back to Masha. "You will be able to manage food, I trust." "Anything you like, my lord, anything at all," the innkeep promised. I hope he chokes on it, Catelyn thought. But the only choking she could imagine was Bran's, as the boy was drowning in his own blood. Lannister looked over a table. "My men will have whatever you're serving these people. Double portions, we've had a long hard ride. I'll take a roast fowl, chicken, duck, pigeon, it makes no matter, and send up a flagon of your best wine. Yoren, will you sup with me?" "Aye, my lord, I will," the Black Brother said. The imp had never even looked towards the end of the long table, and Catelyn was thankful about that. But just then, Marillion bounded to his feet. "My lord of Lannister," he called out, "I would be pleased to entertain you while you eat. Let me sing you the lay of your father's great victory at King's Landing." "Nothing would be more likely to ruin my supper," Tyrion said dryly. His eyes, one green and one black, considered the singer for a moment, then moved on, just to find Catelyn. She tried to turn away, but was too late. The dwarf smiled. "Lady Stark, what an unexpected pleasure," he said. "I was sorry to miss you at Winterfell." The singer stared at her, first confused, then angrily, as Catelyn rose to her feet. Sir Roderick mumbled a curse. If only Lannister would have lingered at the wall a little longer. "Lady Stark?" Masha Heddle said thickly. "I was still Catelyn Tully the last time I bedded here," she told the innkeep. People were muttering all around, and eyes followed Catelyn's every move. She looked around, considering all the knights and free riders, breathing deeply to hide the hammering of her heart. It was a risk, she knew, but she heard herself saying all the same. "You, in the corner, is that the black bat of Harrenhal I see embroidered on your surcoat, sir?" The old man stood. "It is, my lady." "And is Lady Went a true and honest friend to my father, Lord Hoster Tully of Riverrun?" "She is," the man replied stoutly. Sir Roderick stood, his hand on the hilt of his sword. Tyrion Lannister looked at Catelyn puzzled. "The Red Stallion was ever a welcome sight in Riverrun," she said, addressing the three men by the fire. "My father counts Janis Bracken among his oldest and most loyal bannermen." They exchanged uncertain looks. "Our lord is honored by his trust," one of them said hesitantly. "I envy your father all these fine friends," Lannister said, "but I do not quite see the purpose of this, Lady Stark." Catelyn ignored him and turned to the large blue party instead. It was all up to them. 20 or so men would decide the outcome of this. "I know your sigil as well, the Twin Towers of Frey. How fares your good lord, sir?" Their captain rose. "Lord Walder is well, my lady. He plans to take a new wife on his 90th name day, and he has asked for your lord father to honor the wedding with his presence." Tyrion chuckled, but Catelyn knew the dwarf had lost, even if he himself didn't yet. "This man came a guest into my house, and there conspired to murder my son, a boy of 7, she announced to the room, pointing. Sir Roderick was now on her side, blade naked. "In the name of King Robert and the good lords you serve, I call upon you to seize him and help me return him to Winterfell to await the king's justice." Catelyn couldn't decide which she enjoyed more, the sound of a dozen swords being drawn at once, or the shock on Tyrion Lannister's face. And this is where Catelyn 5 ends. The inn at the crossroads is actually pretty infamous for the amount of events that take place there. This includes Tyrion reuniting with his father after escaping the Vale, where Sandor Clegane and Arya Stark happen upon 3 of Gregor Clegane's men, Polliver and the Tickler, who they kill, and finally, the place where Brienne faces off against the men of the Brave Companion, Rogar and Biter, before being captured by the Brotherhood. Lastly, it was also raised during the reign of King Jaehaerys Targaryen while building the King's Road. Here are the differences between the HBO TV show and book. Jason Mallister does not appear in the show and fails to recognize Catelyn. In the book, it is not Bronn, but an unnamed free rider who tells Tyrion that he can have his room. In the book, none of the Freys who are present at the inn give their swords to Catelyn. Sansa II. Sansa travelled to the Hands Tourney with Septim Mordain and Jean Poole in a curtained litter. The fine yellow curtains turned the whole world gold around them. Outside the walls, tents were erected, hundreds of them, swarmed around by thousands of city folks. It was so great, all of it, the shining armors, the chargers decorated with silver and gold, the banners, and of course, most of all, the knights. "It is better than the songs," she whispered in awe. They found their place amongst the high lords and ladies. Sansa wore a beautiful green gown complementing her auburn hair, and people were all around smiling when they saw her. They watched the heroes' procession, each more awe-striking than the last. The 7 knights of the Kingsguard came forth, each wearing scaled white armor. The only exception was Sir Jaime Lannister with a shining gold armor under his white cloak, accompanied by a lion's head helmet and a golden sword. Past them rode Sir Gregor Clegane, the mountain that rides, and Lord Euron Royce, whom Sansa knew from his visits from Winterfell. His armor is bronze, thousands and thousands of years old, engraved with magic runes that ward him against harm, she whispered to Jean. Septim Ordain pointed out Lord Janos Mallister out for them, a man in indigo and silver, eagle wings on his helm. Back in the war, he defeated 3 of Rhaegar's bannermen. After him came the warrior priest Thoros of Myr, making the girls giggle with his flapping red cloak and bald head, even though the scepter told them that Thoros once climbed the walls of Pike with a burning sword in hand. There came others too, people not yet immortalized by song, hedge knights from the Fingers or Highgarden, or even as far as Dorne, as well as sons of great men or lesser houses. Some, though their names were not mentioned with great deeds just yet, would surely get their fame in the years to come. Sansa and Jean agreed. Sir Balon Swan, Lord Bryce Caron of the Marches, Bronze Yoren's heir, Sir Andor Royce, and his younger brother, Sir Robar. Their steel and silver plates sporting the same runes that protected their father. Sir Horace and Sir Hobar, the twins, and Lord Jason's son, Patrick. 6 of the Freys followed, Sir Jared, Sir Hostine, Sir Danwell, Sir Emmon, Sir Theo, Sir Perrywin, all descendants of Lord Walder, and even his bastard, Martin Rivers. Jean confessed to being scared of Jalabazo, the exiled prince of the Summer Isles, who wore a green and scarlet feather cape over his dark skin. She had no objection to the young Lord Beric Dondarrion though, whom she would marry in an instant as she proclaimed. The Hound was there too, and King Robert's brother, Lord Renly. Winterfell was represented by Jory, Alan, and Harwin. Jory looks like a beggar among these others, Septim Ordain noted, and Sansa had to agree. Jory's armor was a blue-grey plate unadorned, covered by an old cloak. He still carried himself well and defeated Horace Redwyn and one of the Freys in jousting. In his 3rd round, Jory faced a free rider called Lethor Brune, who looked just as shabby as himself. Neither unhorsed the other, but Lethor delivered better blows, and the king gave him the bout. Alan and Harwin didn't make it that far. Harwin was knocked off his horse by Sir Meryn of the Kingsguard, while Alan was defeated by Balon Swan. The jousting was a day-long event, and by dusk the hooves of horses tore up the field completely. Sansa and Jean enjoyed it greatly, crying out in excitement when lances exploded into splinters. Jean covered her eyes whenever someone fell, but Sansa watched that too. A lady always behaved. Septim Ordain was pleased with her. Jaime Lannister, the Kingslayer, was brilliant. He unhorsed Sir Andar Royce and Lord Bryce Caron with ease, and defeated even Barristan Selmy, though the old knight made him sweat. Sandor Clegane and his gigantic brother Gregor both proved themselves worthy. Gregor even killed a man, his lance accidentally finding a slit in his opponent's armor. Sansa watched as the young knight fell. With the tip of Gregor's lance in his neck, blood soaking into the ground, his new armor did not serve the young man well. Jean cried so badly that the scepter took her away to get her composure back, but Sansa was fascinated. This was the first time she had seen a man die. She knew she should be crying too, but she didn't feel the tears coming. She might have used them all up for Lady and Bran. She kept telling herself that she would feel differently if it was Jory or her father, but she didn't know the young knight. He was just a stranger from the Vale of Arryn. He would get forgotten, Sansa thought. No songs for the fallen. That, at least, was sad. Once the body was taken away, a boy ran onto the field and shoveled dirt over the blood. The joust continued. Sir Balon Swan was also bested by Gregor, and Lord Renly fell to the Hound. Renly was unhorsed so violently that he flew backwards and landed with a loud crack, but it was only his helm. One of the golden antlers had snapped off. Renly was gracious about his defeat, though, and even handed the antler to the Hound as a token, but Sandor just scoffed and threw it away. It caused a bit of commotion as the townsfolk fought for it, and Lord Renly had to walk among them to restore peace. By then, Septim Ordain was back, alone. Jean felt sick and went back to the castle. Sansa nearly forgot about her friend. Some time later, they watched a hedge knight disgracing himself by killing Beric Dondarrion's horse. Lord Beric switched to a new horse, of which he was soon knocked off by Thoros of Myr. Knights and lords were fighting one after another. At the end, only 4 remained: the Hound and his brother, Jaime Lannister and Sir Loras Tyrell. The young man known as the Knight of Flowers. He was Mace Tyrell's youngest son, who lorded over Highgarden and was the Warden of the South. Loras was the youngest knight in the tourney with his 16 years, yet he defeated 3 knights of the Kingsguard. He was also the most beautiful man Sansa had ever seen, with his chest plate imitating a bouquet of flowers. The blanket on his horse held many white and red roses, and every time he won, he would ride slowly without his helmet and would toss a rose to some lucky maiden he spotted. Loras fought the young Royce in his last match of the day. So Robar's runes could not protect him from the Knight of Flowers, and he ended up in the mud. He had to be carried to his tent, but Sansa barely noticed it. She only had eyes for Sir Loras. When his white stallion stopped in front of her, she thought she could die. All the other maidens received white roses, but not Sansa. She was offered a red one. "Sweet lady," he said, "no victory is half so beautiful as you." Sansa accepted it timidly, struck silent by the knight's gallantry. From close, she could see his golden eyes and lazy brown curls. She was still clutching the rose when Sir Loras rode off. When she looked up from her flower, a man was standing over her. He was short with a pointy beard and silver in his dark hair. He looked almost as old as father. "You must be one of her daughters," he said to her. His eyes weren't smiling with his mouth. "You have the Tully look." "I'm Sansa Stark," she said uneasily. The man was clad in a rich furred cloak showing a mockingbird, and had the manner of a high lord, but Sansa did not recognize him. "I have not had the honor, my lord." Septa Mordane intervened. "Sweet child, this is Lord Peter Baelish of the King's Small Council." "Your mother was my queen of beauty once," the man told her quietly. His breath smelled of mint. "You have her hair." He touched Sansa's locks gently, and then he turned away and left. It was late by then, and King Robert decided that the last 3 matches should be fought tomorrow morning. As the common folks walked back home, the court moved to the riverside, where a feast was waiting. 6 monstrous aurochs were roasting, kitchen boys spraying them with butter and herbs as they turned slowly. There was fresh bread and strawberries. Sansa and Septa Mordane had seats of high honor just to the left of the king and queen's podium. Prince Joffrey sat beside Sansa at one point, and she felt her throat tighten. They had not spoken since that unfortunate debacle back at the Trident. At first, Sansa hated him for what happened to Lady, but soon she convinced herself that it wasn't Joffrey's fault. Neither was it the Queen's, though she gave the order. No, it was all Arya's doing. Sansa couldn't hate Joffrey, especially not tonight when he was so beautiful. He was wearing a deep blue doublet adorned with golden lions' heads, and on his forehead he had a slim coronet of gold and sapphires. His hair was the same color. Sansa trembled as she looked at him, afraid he might hate her or ignore her. But no, Joffrey smiled, kissed her hand, and said, "Sir Loras has a keen eye for beauty, sweet lady." "He was too kind," she said modestly, though her heart was still pounding. "Sir Loras is a true knight. Do you think he will win tomorrow, my lord?" "No," Joffrey said. "My dog will do for him, or perhaps my uncle Jaime. And in a few years, when I am old enough to enter the lists, I shall do for them all." He waved a servant close and received a flagon of iced summer wine. He poured some to Sansa. The girl looked nervously at Septa Mordane, but Joffrey filled the old lady's cup too, and she thanked the prince graciously. Though her cup was refilled every time it emptied, Sansa could not recall the taste of wine later. She didn't need wine. She was drunk on the magnitude of the night. Beauties about which she dreamed all her life, not daring to hope to be around them. Musicians sang to the king, jugglers entertained the rest. The king's fool, a simple man called Moonboy, was dancing all around, mocking everyone so precisely that Sansa wondered if he was truly a simpleton. Not even Septa Mordane could deny a laugh from him. Joffrey was knightly. He talked to Sansa all night, making her laugh and giving her compliments, and even explaining Moonboy's jokes to her. Sansa was awestruck and forgot about Septa Mordane being there at all. Courses came and went, barley soup, salads, snails and honey. This one was new to Sansa, but Joffrey showed her how to get the snail out and gave her the first bite himself. After, trout came baked in clay, which Joffrey cracked open for her. He served her the meat too, even though his movements betrayed that his right arm was still hurting him. Joffrey never mentioned it. After the main course, sweetbreads were served, pigeon pies and baked apples and lemon cakes. But by then, Sansa was too full to eat anything more. She was still complimenting a piece of the lemon cake when King Robert started to shout. The king was getting louder and louder as the evening went by. Every now and again, Sansa heard him laugh or roar a command, but until now, she couldn't make out his words. But now he was heard. "No!" he thundered, drowning everyone out. He was on his feet, swerving and brandishing a goblet of wine. "You do not tell me what to do, woman," he screamed at Queen Cersei. "I am king here. Do you understand? I rule here. And if I say that I will fight tomorrow, I will fight." Every eye was on the king now. Sansa spotted Sir Barristan and Lord Renly, and even the odd short man who touched her hair, but none said a word. The queen's face was impossible to read, a white mask and nothing more. She got up silently and stormed off, trailing servants behind. Sir Jaime put a hand on Robert's shoulder, but the king shook him off so violently that the man fell. King Robert scoffed. "The great knight, I can still knock you in the dirt. Remember that, Kingslayer." He hit his own chest with his goblet, splashing wine all over his silk tunic. "Give me my hammer, and not a man in the realm can stand before me." Jaime rose. "As you say, your grace." His voice was stiff. Finally, Lord Renly came, smiling. "You've spilled your wine, Robert. Let me bring you a fresh goblet." Sansa was so invested in all this that Joffrey startled her by touching her arm. "It grows late," the prince said. He had a curious expression on his face, as if not seeing Sansa at all. "Do you need an escort back to the castle?" "No," Sansa began, but then Septa Mordane, snoring with her head on the table. "I mean to say, yes, thank you. That would be most kind. I am tired, and the way is so dark. I should be glad for some protection." Joffrey called, "Dog!" Sandor Clegane showed up as if he was forming out of shadows. Instead of armor, he wore a red woolen tunic with a dog's head on it. His burnt face was shining in the torchlight. "Yes, your grace," he said. "Take my betrothed back to the castle and see that no harm befalls her," the prince told him brusquely. He then left without saying a word to Sansa. "Did you think Joff was going to take you himself?" The Hound laughed. It sounded like a snarling dog. "Small chance of that." He pulled her on her feet. "Come, you're not the only one who needs sleep. I've drunk too much, and I may need to kill my brother tomorrow." He laughed again. Suddenly, scared, Sansa tried to wake the scepter, with no success. King Robert had left already, and the benches were getting empty. Sansa's beautiful dream had ended. Clegane picked up a torch and set out, Sansa following. The ground was rocky and uneven, and the dancing light made it even harder to walk. Sansa had to watch carefully where she stepped. They crossed the field with the pavilions, passing armors hung outside. The silence grew heavy. Sansa, though hated even to look at Clegane and feared him greatly, was raised well. A lady wouldn't care about his face. She braced herself. "You rode gallantly today, Sir Sandor," she made herself say. Sandor Clegane snarled. "Spare me your empty little compliments, girl, and your sirs. I am no knight. I spit on them and their vows. My brother is a knight. Did you see him ride today?" "Yes," Sansa whispered, trembling. "He was gallant," the Hound finished. Sansa knew he was mocking her. No one could withstand him, she managed. This, at least, was true. The Hound stopped suddenly, and Sansa had to as well. "Some scepter trained you well. You're like one of those birds from the Summer Isles, aren't you? A pretty little talking bird, repeating all the pretty little words they taught you to recite. That's unkind. Sansa felt uneasy. You're frightening me. I want to go now. No one could withstand him, the Hound rasped. That's true enough. No one could ever withstand Gregor. That boy today, his second joust, oh, that was a pretty bit of business. You saw that, did you? Fool boy, he had no business riding in this company. No money, no squire, no one to help him with that armor. That Gorget wasn't fastened proper. You think Gregor didn't notice that? You think Sir Gregor's lance rode up by chance, do you? Pretty little talking girl, you believe that. You're empty-headed as a bird for true. Gregor's lance goes where Gregor's wants it to go. Look at me, look at me! Clegane forced her face upwards and squatted so she could see him. There's a pretty for you. Take a good long stare. You know you want to. I've watched you turning away all the way down the King's Road. Piss on that. Take your look. His fingers held her face like iron. His eyes were drunken and angry, and she had to look. The right side of Sandor Clegane's face was gaunt and sharp, eyes grey under a bushy brow. His nose was hooked, and his hair, dark and long, brushed sideways. He had no hair on the other side of his face though. The left side was in ruins. The ear burnt away, leaving but a hole. His eyes worked, but the skin around it was melted and twisted, black at some places like old leather. His bone was showing down on his jaw. Sansa started to cry. The Hound let her go and dropped his torch. No pretty words for that, girl. No little compliments the scepter taught you. Sansa didn't say anything. The man went on. Most of them, they think it was some battle, a siege, a burning tower, an enemy with a torch. One fool asked if it was dragon's breath. His laugh was now softer, but bitter too. I'll tell you what it was, girl. Sansa could smell the wine on his breath as he talked. I was younger than you. 6, maybe 7. A woodcarver set up shop in the village under my father's keep, and to buy favor, he sent us gifts. The old man made marvelous toys. I don't remember what I got, but it was Gregor's gift I wanted. A wooden knight, all painted up. Every joint pegged separate and fixed with strings so you could make him fight. Gregor is 5 years older than me. The toy was nothing to him. He was already a squire, near 6 foot tall, and muscled like an ox. So I took his knight, but there was no joy to it, I tell you. I was scared all the while, and true enough, he found me. There was a brazier in the room. Gregor never said a word, just picked me up under his arm and shoved the side of my face down in the burning coals and held me there while I screamed and screamed. You saw how strong he is. Even then, it took 3 grown men to drag him off me. The Septons preach about the 7 hells. What do they know? Only a man who's been burnt knows what hell is truly like. My father told everyone my bedding had caught fire, and our maester gave me ointments. Gregor got his ointments too. 4 years later, they anointed him with the 7 oils, and he recited his knightly vows, and Rhaegar Targaryen tapped him on the shoulder and said, "Arise, Sir Gregor." His rasping voice died down. He was still crouching in front of Sansa, just a shadow in the darkness. He was breathing heavily. Sansa realized that she felt sorry for him, and that made all her fear go away. The silence stretched long. Slowly she put her hand on his shoulder. He was no true knight, she whispered to him. The Hound roared. Sansa stumbled backwards, but he caught her arm. No, he growled at her. No, little bird, he was no true knight. For the remainder of the way, Sandor Clegane was silent. He took her to the carts, told the driver to go to the Red Keep, and accompanied Sansa inside. The ride was silent too, though through King's Gate and up in the city. Clegane didn't abandon her after either, and walked her up to her door. "Thank you, my lord," Sansa said meekly. The Hound caught her arm once more. "The things I told you tonight," he said, his voice now rough again. "If you ever tell Joffrey, your sister, your father, any of them." "I won't," Sansa whispered. "I promise." But the Hound wasn't done. "If you ever tell anyone," he finished, "I'll kill you." Now, this chapter looks to subvert any romanticism of knights as honorable and chivalrous through Sir Gregor Clegane, who may be an anointed knight. but embodies none of the traits he is supposed to adhere to. While in contrast, Sandor, Sir Duncan, and Brienne, all three of whom are not knights. Sandor because he rejects the falsehoods that come with being a knight. Sir Duncan lied about being knighted and therefore is not truly an anointed knight, and Brienne, who is not allowed entry into knighthood because of her gender, are easily the truest knights of all of Westeros. This chapter is also significant because in Sansa I, A Storm of Swords, Sansa talks to Loras on her way to meet with Marjorie and the Queen of Thorns and asks Loras about the red rose he gave her. "You gave me a rose, a red rose. You threw white roses to the other girls that day." It made her flush to speak of it. "You said, 'No victory was half as beautiful as me.'" So Loras gave her a modest smile. "I spoke only a simple truth that any man with eyes could see." He doesn't remember, Sansa realized, startled. He is only being kind to me. He doesn't remember me, or the rose, or any of it. She had been so certain that it meant something, that it meant everything. A red rose, not a white. This was probably meant to show how we attach meaning where none was meant. Sansa then goes on to displease Loras by trying to make the rose meaningful. Moreover, Littlefinger's queer encounter with Sansa is noticeable, and this might have been the exact moment when he decided to include her in the plans in place of Catelyn, because, like her mother, "You have the Tully look," and "You have her hair." Littlefinger leaves abruptly without saying anything sarcastic like he normally does. Lastly, in the joust, Harwin was unhorsed by Meryn Trant, and Alan fell to Sir Balon Swan. Jaime narrowly defeated Barristan, and Thoros of Myr defeated Beric Dondarrion. Now, here are the differences between the HBO TV show and book. In the show, the Hound isn't shown participating in the tourney, and he spends all his time on the royal pavilion. In the show, there is no feast where Robert gets drunk and declares he will fight in the melee, and Sansa is escorted by the Hound. Rather, in the show, it is Peter who tells Sansa the origins of how the Hound got his burnt face. Daenerys IV. Vaes Dothrak's horse gate was made of two enormous bronze stallions rearing, with their hooves touching 100 feet above the road. Daenerys was confused. Why would a city that had no walls or buildings need a gate? But it was still there all the same, great and beautiful, and she could see the distant blue mountains through it. Khal Drogo and his blood riders rode under the gate. Dany followed on her silver, accompanied by Ser Jorah and Viserys, now allowed to have a horse again. The Dothraki called him Khal Rhaemar, the Sorefoot King, ever since Daenerys made him walk that day. Khal Drogo was generous enough to offer Viserys a seat on a cart, and the young king accepted. Of course, this was just further mockery. In a Khalasar, only the crippled, the eunuch, and women giving birth travelled by cart. Soon, Viserys earned another nickname, Khal Rhaegat, the Cart King. The man believed this was Khal Drogo's way to apologize, and Dany asked Ser Jorah not to educate her brother in the Dothraki ways, lest Viserys would be ashamed again. Ser Jorah thought Viserys could use it, but obeyed Daenerys all the same. Khal Drogo was harder to convince, but Dany, as a wife, had her ways, and in the end, Viserys was allowed to have a mount once more. "Where is the city?" Daenerys asked as they passed under the bronze arch. She could see no buildings, just grass and the road itself, lined with old monuments stolen from lands the Dothraki raided. "Ahead," Ser Jorah answered, "under the mountain." They rode on. Statues of forgotten heroes and nameless gods loomed on each side of the road. Stone King stared at Dany out of chipped and stained faces as she passed. Monsters and young maidens, dragons made of iron, griffins, manticores, and other beasts she could not name spotted the grass all around. Some of the statues were hard to look at, too strange for the eye, and Ser Jorah explained they must have come from the Shadowlands beyond Asshai. "So many," Daenerys said, "and from so many lands." Viserys was not impressed. "The trash of dead cities," he sneered. He had enough sense to use the common tongue though, which was understood by only a few Dothraki. Dani still looked around nervously. All these savages know how to do is steal the things better men have built. And kill, he laughed. They do know how to kill, otherwise I'd have no use for them at all. They are my people now, Dani said. You should not call them savages, brother. The dragon speaks as he likes, Viserys said, but he still used the common tongue. Aggo and Rakara behind them couldn't understand him, and Viserys gave them a mocking smile. See, the savages lack the wit to understand the speech of civilized men. They were passing a huge monolith, 50 feet tall, covered in moss. Viserys barely gave it a glance. How long must we linger amidst these ruins before Drogo gives me my army? I grow tired of waiting. The princess must be presented to the Dosh Khaleen. The crones, yes, Viserys interrupted, and there's to be some murmur show of a prophecy for the whelp in her belly. You told me. What is that to me? I'm tired of eating horse meat, and I'm sick of the stink of these savages. He sniffed at his own clothes. It was filthy, like all the heavy wools and silks he had brought to the journey. The Western market will have food more to your taste, your grace. The traders from the free cities come there to sell their wares. The Khal will honor his promise in his own time, Ser Jorah answered. He had better, Viserys said grimly. I was promised a crown, and I mean to have it. The dragon is not mocked. Then he rode off to inspect a statue of a six-breasted woman more closely. Dani was anxious. I pray that my sun and stars will not keep him waiting too long, she told Ser Jorah. The knight stared after the king with doubt. Your brother should have bided his time in Pentos. There is no place for him in a Khalasar. Illaroy tried to warn him. He will go as soon as he has his 10,000. My lord husband promised a golden crown. Mormont grunted. Yes, Khaleesi, but the Dothraki look on these things differently than we do in the West. I have told him as much, as Illaroy told him, but your brother does not listen. The horse lords are no traders. Viserys thinks he sold you, and now he wants his price. Yet Khal Drogo would say he had you as a gift. He will give Viserys a gift in return, yes, in his own time. You do not demand a gift, not of a Khal. You do not demand anything of a Khal. It is not right to make him wait. Dani wasn't sure why she was still defending her brother. Viserys says he could sweep the Seven Kingdoms with 10,000 Dothraki screamers. Ser Jorah snorted. Viserys could not sweep a stable with 10,000 brooms. The young woman didn't pretend to be surprised at the knight's disdainful tone. What if it were not Viserys? She asked. If it was someone else who led them, someone stronger, could the Dothraki truly conquer the Seven Kingdoms? Ser Jorah gave this some thought. When I first went into exile, I looked at the Dothraki and saw half-naked barbarians, as wild as their horses. If you had asked me then, princess, I should have told you that 1,000 good knights would have no trouble putting to flight 100 times as many Dothraki. But if I asked you now? Now, the knight said, I am less certain. They are better riders than any knights, utterly fearless, and their bows outrange ours. In the Seven Kingdoms, most archers fight on foot, from behind a shield wall or a barricade of sharpened stakes. The Dothraki fire from horseback, charging or retreating, it makes no matter. They are full as deadly, and there are so many of them, my lady. Your lord husband alone counts 40,000 mounted warriors in his Khalasar. Is that truly so many? Your brother Rhaegar brought as many men to the Trident, Ser Jorah admitted. But of that number, no more than 1/10 were knights. The rest were archers, free riders, and foot soldiers armed with spears and pikes. When Rhaegar fell, many threw down their weapons and fled the field. How long do you imagine such a rabble would stand against a charge of 40,000 screamers howling for blood? How well would boiled leather jerkins and mailed shirts protect them when the arrows fall like rain? Not long, she said. Not well. He nodded. Mind you, princess, if the lords of the Seven Kingdoms have the wit the gods gave a goose, it will never come to that. The riders have no taste for siegecraft. I doubt they could take even the weakest castle in the Seven Kingdoms. But if Robert Baratheon were fool enough to give them battle... Is he? Dani asked. A fool, I mean? The knight considered this for a moment. Robert should have been born Dothraki, he replied at last. Your Cal would tell you that only a coward hides behind stone walls instead of facing his enemy with a blade in hand. The usurper would agree. He is a strong man, brave, and rash enough to meet a Dothraki horde in the open field. But the men around him, well, their pipers play a different tune. His brother Stannis, Lord Tywin Lannister, Eddard Stark. Jorah spat. You hate this Lord Stark, Dany said. He took from me all I loved, for the sake of a few lice-ridden poachers and his precious honor. The knight said bitterly. The subject still pained him. It was clear to Dany. Jorah changed it quickly. There, he announced, pointing. Vaes Dothrak, the city of the Horse Lords. Following Khal Drogo and the Blood Riders, they crossed the Great Bazaar of the Western Market. Dany was staring all around, seeing something strange wherever she looked. Vaes Dothrak was immense, yet without walls or bridges. An ancient city, even the buildings were odd. Stone pavilions, huge mansions woven from grass, wooden towers, marble pyramids, log halls. None of them are alike, she said. Your brother had part of the truth, Sir Jorah admitted. The Dothraki do not build. 1,000 years ago, to make a house they would dig a hole in the earth and cover it with a woven grass roof. The buildings you see were made by slaves brought here from lands they've plundered, and they built each after the fashion of their own peoples. Daenerys just noticed that most of them were deserted. Where are the people who live here? She asked. The Bazaar was swarming, but just a bit further she scarcely saw a soul. Only the crones of the Dosh Khaleen dwell permanently in the sacred city, them and their slaves and servants, Sir Jorah explained. Yet Vaes Dothrak is large enough to house every man of every Khalasar, should all the cows return to the mother at once. The crones have prophesied that one day that will come to pass, and so Vaes Dothrak must be ready to embrace all its children. Finally, Khal Drogo halted his riders near the Eastern Market, full of goods brought in from Yitai, Ashai, and the Shadowlands. They stopped in the shadow of the Mother of Mountains. Daenerys smiled, remembering how Illyroy's slave girl told her to expect a place with 200 rooms and silver doors. In reality, it was an enormous feasting hall of timber with a silk roof against the rain. Around, there were fire pits and many small earthen houses covered in grass. A small group of slaves had gone ahead days ago to prepare for their arrival. Now Khal Drogo swung down from the saddle and handed his arak alongside all other weapons to one of them. Not even the mighty Khal was exempt from the rules. As Sir Jorah told Dany, it was forbidden to carry a blade at Vaes Dothrak, as well as shedding any free man's blood. Even Khalasar's feuding would put a pause on their war while near the Mother of Mountains. All Dothraki were one blood and one Khalasar here. Drogo's oldest blood rider, Kaholo, came to Dany. He was a bold man, squat and scarred, due to a mace hitting his face when he was protecting a young Drogo from his father's enemies. He has served the Khal ever since. Blood riders were common. Every Khal had them. At first, they were the Dothraki equivalent of the Kingsguard, but soon she learned that they are much more. Drogo called them blood of my blood, and for a reason, for they were brothers to the Khal. When a Khal died, his riders lived only long enough to avenge him, then followed their leader into the grave willingly. Jiqui told Daenerys that in some Khalasars, the riders shared the Khal's food, wine, tent, and often his wife too, but never his horse. A horse was a single possession every Dothraki had. Dany was glad that Drogo was not that much of a traditionalist. She didn't wish to be shared. Old Kaholo was kind to her, but the others scared her badly. Huge and silent Hago staring at her, and Kotho, a truly cruel man. Dora's skin was always bruised when Kotho touched her, and Eerie cried when she had to spend the night with the Blood Rider. Even the horses were wary of Kotho. Even so, the men were bonded to her husband for life and in death, so Dany had no choice but to accept them. Sometimes she even wished that her father were guarded by such men. Old tales and songs told how noble and valiant the Kingsguard was, yet King Aerys was killed by one of them. A handsome boy he was then, and now he's called the Kingslayer. And then there was Sir Barristan Selmy the Bold, who still served, even now the usurper. Daenerys wondered if all men in the Seven Kingdoms were that treacherous. She vowed to give her unborn son his own blood riders so he could sit on the Iron Throne in safety. "Khaleesi," Kaholo said in Dothraki, "Drogo, who was blood of my blood, commands me to tell you that he must ascend the Mother of Mountains this night, to sacrifice to the gods for his safe return." Daenerys was aware that only men were allowed to visit the Mother. Drogo and his blood riders would go at night and return by dawn. "Tell my sun and stars that I dream of him, and wait anxious for his return," she said, thankful. She was thankful for a night's rest. Being pregnant, she got tired more easily, but it only enhanced Drogo's desires, and his nighttime visits left her exhausted. Doree showed Dany to the hollow hill she and Drogo would stay. It was nice and cool. "Jiqui, a bath please," she commanded, craving the hot water on her tired body. Dany enjoyed the thought of not having to ride off in the morning. It felt good to know that they will stay at one place for a while. The water was, as she liked it, scalding hot. "I will give my brother his gifts tonight," Daenerys decided as Jiqui was washing her hair. "He should look a king in the sacred city. Doria, run and find him and invite him to sup with me." Viserys was always nicer to the Lyseni girl than the others, maybe because Illaroy let him bed her. "Irri, go to the bazaar and buy fruit and meat, anything but horse flesh." "Horse is best," Irri said. "Horse makes a man strong." Viserys hates horse meat. "As you say, Khaleesi." Irri returned with goat meat and a basket full of fruits and vegetables. Jiqui prepared the meal, and Dany laid down the clothes she made for Viserys: tunic and leggings of white linen, leather sandals, a bronze belt, and leather vest with dragons on it. She hoped that the Dothraki would respect her brother more if he looked less like a beggar, and that the gift would help him forgive her for that day in the grass. Viserys was, after all, her king, blood of the dragon. Daenerys was laying out the cloak, a sand silk green thing, when her brother arrived, dragging Doree by the arm. Her face was red where Viserys had hit her. "How dare you send me this ore to give me commands?" he demanded, shoving the handmaid roughly to the carpet. Daenerys was taken by surprise. "I only wanted—" "Doree, what did you say?" "Khaleesi, pardons, forgive me. I went to him, as you bid, and told him you commanded him to join you for supper." "No one commands the dragon," Viserys snarled. "I am your king. I should have sent you back her head." The girl sobbed, but Dany calmed her with a touch. "Don't be afraid, he won't hurt you. Sweet brother, please forgive her. The girl misspoke herself. I told her to ask you to sup with me, if it pleases your grace." She took his hand and led him across the room. "Look, these are for you." Viserys frowned, looking at his present. "What is all this?" "New raiment. I made it for you." Dany smiled shyly. He looked at her with disgust. "Dothraki rags. Do you presume to dress me now?" "Please, you'll be cooler and more comfortable. And I thought, maybe if you dressed like them, the Dothraki." She wasn't sure how to finish without angering him further. "Next you'll want to braid my hair." "I'd never." He was cruel, when she only wanted to help. "You have no right to a braid. You have won no victories yet." This was not a wise thing to say. Viserys' lilac eyes were bright with anger, but he didn't dare to strike her, not with the handmaidens around and guards outside. Instead, he picked up the cloak and sniffed at it. "This stinks of manure. Perhaps I shall use it as a horse blanket." "I had Doree sew it specially for you," Dany said, her feelings hurt. "These are garments fit for a cow." "I am the Lord of the Seven Kingdoms, not some grass-stained savage with bells in his hair," Viserys spat. He grabbed her arm. "You forget yourself, slut. Do you think that big belly will protect you if you wake the dragon?" His hold was painful, and Dany felt like a child again, weeping while he raged. But now she reached out with her other hand and grabbed the first thing she found, the belt with the heavy ornate bronze chain that she wanted to give Viserys. She swung it with all her might. It was a good hit, getting her brother square in the face. He let her arm go. Blood was running down on Viserys' face where the edge of the stone of the medallion cut it open. "You are the one who forgets himself," Dany said. "Didn't you learn anything that day in the grass? Leave me now, before I summon my cars to drag you out, and pray that Khal Drogo does not hear of this, or he will cut open your belly and feed you your own entrails." Viserys climbed back onto his feet. "When I come into my kingdom, you will rue this day, slut." He left, palms over his face, not taking his gifts. The beautiful sand silk cloak was ruined by splatters of blood. Dany grabbed it and sank to her sleeping mat. "Your supper is ready, Khaleesi," Jiqui announced. "I'm not hungry," Dany said quietly. She felt very tired. "Share the food among yourselves, and send some to Ser Jorah if you would." Then she added, "Please bring me one of the dragon's eggs." Irri fetched the green one for her, with the bronze flecks among its scales. Daenerys curled up around it, pulling the bloody cloak over herself and the egg like a blanket. She liked to hold the eggs. They were beautiful, and being close to them made her feel better, stronger even, and braver, as if the dragons inside lent her their strength. She was still clutching the egg when she felt the child in her move. He was greeting his dragon brother in the egg, Dany thought. "You are the dragon," she whispered to him. "The true dragon. I know it. I know it." Then she slept and dreamed of home. And this is where Daenerys IV ends. This chapter definitely builds on the last chapter, with Daenerys coming into her own as not just an extension of Viserys, but her own person with her own agency. Lastly, it is a little suspicious how Dora misunderstood Daenerys' request as an order, since she has been with Daenerys long enough to know she wouldn't ever order her brother to do anything, and she even said, "Dora, run and find him and invite him to sup with me." This chapter also foreshadows the possibility of Dothraki one day becoming one khalasar under the control of Daenerys in the Winds of Winter. Here are the differences between the HBO TV show and book. In the show, Jorah doesn't seem to hate Lord Eddard Stark, while in the books he spits at the mention of his name. Lastly, in the show, Daenerys and Jorah don't have as many conversations about how utterly incapable Viserys would be at retaking the Seven Kingdoms. And that's it for this chapter and for this video. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching, but before you go, our book The Queen Games is coming soon. Pre-orders are open right now, and they directly support the future of the series. We've also dropped a cinematic trailer. The link is below if you want a first look at the world, the cultures, and the queens who fight to rule. And this part is important. You decide what happens next. There's a voting page linked below where you can influence the direction of all future books, alliances, betrayals, and all major decisions. Check out the links in the description, and remember to subscribe for more.